view. It was pretty good, actually, what I watched of it. I watched like half of it live. It's kind of weird. Hunter Biden, I guess because you expect him to be, you expect this guy, he's so low. His reputation has been destroyed. Um, he has nothing to lose. But when you see him in an interview, he's not perfect by any means, but he does have authenticity. The guy is authentic. I mean, no matter what you have to say about him, he is authentic. And that's who he is. He's not hiding it, which is a nice change. Usually they hide all this stuff. Anywho, I had a couple of things that I wanted to get to. Um, I see there's a lot of people upset about uh, not Hunter Biden, but that Al Saeed or Mamdani. And honestly, I think that stuff is the the way that they talk about these guys. It's fear mongering, is what it is. But I get it's like they all fear monger each other. That's their stock and trade, is making you scared of the other pundit. Making, like Ben Shapiro, he thinks his job is to make sure everybody that watches him is deathly afraid of this Al Saeed character, deathly afraid of Mamdani. And the way they talk about him is they like kind of just write them off and hoping that their own audience will write them off. And also something I noticed about Ben Shapiro is, and all of them really, is that they don't, like this Al Saeed, you'd never hear that guy's name until until he won that Michigan Democrat primary. Then all of a sudden, he's front and center. They're all front and center once that happens. And it just, I don't know. I was just thinking how weird that is. It's like until they're locked in as a threat, they don't talk about them for some odd reason. And then as soon as they're in there, they just kind of out of nowhere, they're like a big shot in that person's name. It's just really weird. I don't really understand it all that well, why they do that. It's kind of stupid. But I've seen a couple of interesting tweets about Hassan Piker and Mamdani that I thought were kind of interesting. And like one about Mamdani, he said something that was kind of sort of salient, I guess you could say. I'm trying to get my bookmarks right quick. Here we go.
Um, I think that with the interesting thing about our communities here is I think that minority communities, because we have never had representation, we are tied much more to identity. White communities, they've had representation forever. And so for them, their tie is a little less identity and a little more ideology. And so what I mean by that is we have a lot of voters here who think of themselves first as progressive voters. And so we reach out to them speaking about our platform, our progressive platform. And you're very right that you need someone in the middle to be a validator, someone to tell them to trust us, believe in us. We've had that with Tiffany Caban and Cynthia Nixon.
Anyway, I wanted to talk about this because the person that they quoted it, and it says white liberals are tools, just found this clip of Zohran Mamdani on an Arab podcast admitting that he fooled white liberals. I don't know. Did you guys get that from that clip right there? Is that what you got from it? Because what I got from that was he was saying you can't appeal to white people with identity. They don't identify that way politically. Whereas he's basically saying minorities, that's all they identify with is their minority status. And that, he's saying about white people is, yeah, you can't, you want to talk to them, you don't do it through identity, you do it through ideology. That's the only way you're going to reach these people. And there's a common, and that's why the progressives more or less include minorities in this progressive constellation, because it allows them to reach two different groups, one through ideology, one through identity. I don't know. I mean, that's what I gathered from it. I mean, honestly, I think the people that read this and got what this quote or this tweet is saying, I think they're kind of idiots. And just it's that kind of thing where it's like it's projection. You know, people are projecting what they, I mean, obviously the person that quote tweeted this sees that, doesn't quite understand what he's saying, and just automatically assumes that it's, you know, that it's some, you know, subversive, some sort of subversive comment that I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird. I think actually what Mamdani said there was actually kind of insightful. That if you want to reach these people, you don't do it through the identity. It really doesn't matter either way. But another thing, now that I'm on identity at the moment, I was thinking earlier, I saw um hmm, about identity and this country. You know, there's they the progressives, they appeal to these minorities, guys like Mamdani. They appeal to minorities, and when they do, white people are their target basically. And I'm sure you've all heard Mamdani when he says when he starts talking about the rich people, white people, the white areas, the rich areas of New York. And I was thinking, you know, as our minority or our majority shrinks, as our population shrinks in comparison to the rest of the country or to the country as a whole, that's only going to increase. Like how they refer to us as the enemy or as the group, like as our chunk of the country shrinks, the more and more it makes sense to attack us, because less and less of a percentage of the country we get. And that, I mean, that it kind of scares me, honestly, because it's basically that portends for the future. We're going to be a boogeyman, more or less. I mean, they're already trying to make that the case that, oh, we're the source of everybody's problems. And you know, when Mamdani's talking about when he's talking about us not responding to identity, that's because we didn't. We used to only have the only identity in America was our identity. So people would just think in terms of the constituents or the voters. You know, it wasn't like that. We didn't use identity. I don't know. And I guess we're going to just have to start seeing it that way. Because when they talk about everybody, it's not specifically about us anymore, really. And that's why, and I was thinking maybe that's why I've never heard my identity or our identity talked about in politics, because it's kind of a moot point, especially in the past. You know, what is the point of referring to 90% of the country? What is the point in referring to the majority of the country as an identity? You know, I mean, because I was thinking about this, like, why don't we ever hear that? Why don't we ever hear about the male identity or the white identity? And I guess it's because that's the de facto identity that's being referred to. Anytime they refer to the majority or to the most of the country, it's either going to be white people or men, not white men, but men in general, That's half the country. White people, half the country, white men and women. So I guess that's why they don't really refer to white males, because if you're talking about white people, we're included in that half of the country. If you're talking about the majority, white men are included in that. If you're talking about the male majority, white men are included in that too. Uh, so basically, anytime they're just referring to the electorate, I suppose really they're referring to us, uh, whether we be male or white, typically. And the only time they use identities is really when they're picking out women, which it's the same as men. They would be half and half. Half of white people, half of the country would be women. But for everybody else, that's why we hear about them all the time. You know, I just wanted to get some of this stuff out of the way before I, start the Hunter Biden, because it's not a short podcast by any I think it's like 2 hours. But I was thinking about men and women, and it occurred to me that we live in two totally different worlds. Like, it's almost as if they really are two different worlds. We live in the men's world or the women's world, where everybody in their world is friends with people in their world. They trust people in their world. And it's kind of like the other side has started to become the enemy. But and like marriage was when those two groups, those two uh worlds meet. When people get married, that's when the male and the female world meet. But like even when you hang out with your friends, there's like usually a group of women friends that hang out with you and your guy friends. Like there's always kind of this flip side. There's the female version and then the male version. And it's like, let's say you're trying to date a girl in the group that you and your friends hang out with. If you want to influence her somehow, or like, you do well to ask one of her friends to speak on your behalf, you know like, because she trusts her friends and she'll listen to her friends. But like, whereas a guy probably he's not he doesn't understand the right tact to talk to that. Do you get what I'm saying here about it's like, what's up, Alex? Long time no see. But it's like I said, it's two different worlds. Like, men, we're in the world of men. Our competition is between other men. Um, our closest confidants are men. The people we look out for are men, like whether or not to, people that might do us an injustice or an injury, or the opposite, like a friend. And it's weird, is like, you can use your friendship with a woman, though, to influence another woman. I don't know. I was just watching Othello, and there's a few scenes, like there's a scene in that play where one of the guys ruins his reputation, and then to get it back, he ruins his reputation with the general. To get it back, he like kind of he talks to the general's wife and asks her to speak on his behalf. But I just realized how, especially back then, it's like two different worlds. Uh, where the women concerned themselves with other women, or their friends, or their mistress, the woman that they worked for. And then the men worked for uh, nobles or whatever, but for somebody they feel is higher in the hierarchy. And it's like, the two worlds only meet occasionally, and they have their own. It really is like two different worlds. They have their own pecking orders, their own enforcers, like almost like the police. And you know what's weird about that Othello is that that move or that play really resonates with me today, because there's a lot of that play has to do with the clashing and intermingling of Muslim and Christian society, Muslim and Christian peoples. You know, that play, half of that play takes place on Cyprus, and the inhabitants of Cyprus, even back then in like the 1400s, were Muslims. And there's a scene in that movie when they're carousing, they're drinking in the alleyways or in the streets, and the Christian men are carousing with Muslim women. And while they're drinking and kissing, making out, laughing, making music out of bongos and stuff, some Muslims walk by and like say some slick shit to one of the women, the Muslim women, like you know whore or whatever, and her and all the other Muslim girls kind of freak out, you know, and then you see the Christian guys like grab them to like calm them down and sort of like tell the Muslim guys to get away, get away. You know, it was just really weird when I was watching this, because I don't know. It's like the two different. First of all, the Muslims, when they walked up, everybody's kind of drunk and they're all sort of giggling, making out. It's all very degenerate in a Muslim's eye. They're drinking, which is they can't drink. Muslims don't drink. They're carousing in the streets. The women are kind of exposed. The men are kind of sloppy and fighting with swords and daggers and stuff in the middle of the street. Guys are getting cut from little drunk quarrels. And it was obviously like a comment. It was just kind of commenting on the on the intermingling of the two societies. And it's kind of weird because that same stuff happens today. You see Muslim men kind of disgusted, more or less, with how we are, but they have their disgusting extremes like we do. You know, okay, yeah, we drink alcohol. Well, they do their own weird stuff. You know, I mean, they have their own degeneracy to be concerned with, more so than, or as much as we do. And you know, when that play was made, our civilizations were more or less equals. You know, they had the same technology the West had at that point. But history has kind of vindicated the West, more or less technologically, like we're much more advanced than these other societies. With all of our flaws, with all of them, we're still more advanced. And they resent the hell out of that. It's weird that's such a, you know, that it really does bother them. And that's why they behave the way they do. That's why they talk the way they do, because of how Nick Hassan Piker, the way he talks about white people and such. Yeah, anywho, you know, that art back then, you know, and I was thinking too, I was watching some operas like Don Giovanni, and well, I was watching Don Giovanni, and I was thinking to myself, you know, when Mozart was making his operas, you know, that was like Shakespeare's plays were still like, I mean, I don't know if they considered them fresh, but they had only been made, I think well, no, I'm mistaken. I was thinking they were made in the 1600s. I think it was more like the 1400s. But either way, those commentaries, they're incredible. And that one man, it's almost like Homer in a way. And when they destroy these things, or when they destroy something like Homer, as I was thinking about characters, I seen something that popped up and it was showing Snape, Professor Snape as a black guy. Or, and why somebody's ethnicity, a character's ethnicity, is kind of important. And I was thinking to myself, why didn't they change the characters of Harry Potter when they made the first movies? Why didn't they race swap them then? And I was thinking to myself, it would not have felt right, because I read those books, and their ethnicities informed who they were. And since it was the first telling of Harry Potter as a movie, they didn't race swap them because they wanted people. You got to have you have to have a frame of reference or a starting point in regards to a story like that. Nobody had seen this. There wasn't another movie where they were. So I feel like they had to make them white for the first telling, because if you read the book, I'm not so sure if it does matter, but I don't know. I was thinking about it. I was like, why would that bother me so much? Why would it bother me so much if they made them different races? And I was thinking to myself, well, it's like you want to see them done faithfully. You have an idea of those characters in your mind, and if those movies would have they would have been panned. Nobody would have liked them, because they were described as a certain way in the movies, and to see them any other way on in a movie, it just wouldn't have been right. But also, another thing about characters, ethnicity and race, that means something. It means something. It means they grew up in a certain place. It means they see a certain place as home. It means they see certain people as home. Like I was watching this movie called The Long Voyage Home. It was done by John Ford in like the 40s during World War II. John Wayne in it. All the characters from all the John Ford the other ones, Ward, Bond. And there's a scene where they're laying on a cargo hold that they're kind of on top of the ship. They're laying across it, and the sun's just beating down on them. They're almost back to Ireland. They're all thanking God they just made it through this voyage with a ship filled with munitions, didn't get killed. And one of them's an Irishman, and he's talking about the big green fields and the beautiful green forests. I was thinking to myself, if white people were like and when he says the green fields and the green forests, the tall forests, he's thinking of white people. He's thinking of the people in that place. Like when you think of home, you don't just think of dirt. You don't just think of mountains or hills or cornfields or roads or sidewalks. No, you think of people as well as landscapes. And if you're homesick, if you're nostalgic, it's not just for home, it's for the people at home and the people that make home feel comfortable, that make home feel safe. And it occurred to me that Ireland without the Irish people, it's not Ireland. It's not Ireland, and it won't be. Scotland without the Scottish people won't be Scotland. Whatever it will be, it certainly is. It won't be Scotland. And the same with every other European peoples. And the things that we love about those places, like our own homes. What would your home be if those people weren't there? You know what I mean? Like, I think of Michigan, or like where my family lives in Michigan, bro, that the small town they live in, it's meaningless without the people that live there. Utterly meaningless. I could care less about the dirt. It's the people there. That's what I care about. That's what's home to me. And that stuff is important. And, hopefully, those things don't change. I don't think they will. I mean, and I see everybody, they're very negative. A lot of people are very negative, very pessimistic, but I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure that they have that they know what they're talking about. I don't know. Like, I agree that there's obviously there's that possibility, but I don't know. I just don't believe it's so bleak, or that we've exhausted every option. I don't know. I just don't see things like that. Like I've said before, we haven't even begun to fight, and that means something. The fact that we have, and like they say, it's always darkest before dawn. And like, I don't mean to sound cliche, but these things are they are cliches, because this is how things go down. This is how things go down. The night is always darkest before dawn. It's like things always get bad before they get worse. So it's like, yeah, I get things are bad, or not things are always bad before they get worse. I mean, things are always darkest before dawn, or they get bad and then people react. Well, we haven't even reacted yet. It would be one thing if we had already put up, some valiant effort and had been rebuffed. Okay, I could understand that, but we haven't even begun that yet. It's only now, like only recently have people started to focus on identity. Like, hey, this matters. This is something we need to be concerned about. And once that stuff starts getting into the zeitgeist and people start acknowledging that, and then the more and more people will acknowledge that, it will get closer and closer to the mainstream. Like, you got John Cleese, he's talking. I don't want to get off into a tangent, but this stuff isn't just going to pass into the good night without ever coming up for debate. That's what I'm trying to say. This stuff hasn't come up for debate. There's no way that we're just going to disappear from the earth without even so much as a debate taking place. That's just not possible. It's not going to happen. I mean, and I just think that it's not we shouldn't be in despair. Right now is when we should be talking about it, and gathering, reaching out to each other, waking as many people up as possible. My little brother said something to me the other day. Hey, what's up, J Boss? Patrick. My little brother, he said something to me the other day that I thought was so incredibly cutting and insightful. He's an electrician, and he says he was working with this Puerto Rican guy the other day. And he was talking about, my little brother, he's very concerned about, white, the white ethnicity, white people being replaced and whatnot. And this guy was basically saying, why don't white people just accept it? Why? Basically saying we should get over ourselves and quit bitching and moaning about foreigners, about being replaced. And my little brother, he looked at the guy. I guess he said the guy, I guess my little brother knows his wife or whatever, but the guy brings up his wife. My little brother was saying, this dude's Puerto Rican, but he's European. The kid's son has blue eyes. Like he's white. My little brother, he says to him, he goes, well, how about this? How would you feel if you had Chinese people streaming into your country, into Puerto Rico, and you saw all your culture being stripped from you? Thanks, J-Boss. Appreciate that. Yeah, like and subscribe, fellas. He said, how would you feel if China, and this was just an example, Chinese people were flooding your country. They're drowning out your culture, of plantains and frijoles and Macarena and Boricua this, Boricua that. He's like, how would you feel about it? And he said the guy immediately kind of snapped too, like, and started to understand what my little brother was worried about. And the guy was like, well, I would be pissed. I would have a problem with it. He goes, and my little brother's like, well, no shit, you would be pissed. Why don't you, I mean, that's how we feel. And like in a lot of these minorities, it's not their ox getting gored. They don't see America being, white people in America being replaced as a bad thing because their ox isn't being gored. But if you explain it to them that way, at least some of them, the intellectually honest people who are talking to you in good faith, will get that. Like, and with the Puerto Ricans and Cubans, they're fiercely proud of their countries and of their culture. And it's kind of weird. Like, I guess for the simple fact that they've never thought of how they would feel if they were being thrown out of their own island or replaced. And it doesn't even occur to them what that would be like. And it's like, what? Like, especially with these people that are so proud like that, it's like, well, dude, think about it. If you were in our, and and he said something too before he explained what they were talking about. He goes, and this guy's Puerto Rican. He's a European, and he somehow he doesn't identify with us, which makes, I guess it makes sense to a certain degree, but because nobody ever says they're white, they're European. But bet your ass, if it came down to it, where it was them versus a minority, and the minority saying they're white and saying they're racist. I mean, that's how, if you got blue eyes, you're going to be considered white, more or less, pretty much. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get down to business.
True.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, okay, that's right. Sorry. I had unmuted something.
As you know.
In the meantime.
Yeah. And then I wake up one morning and you're doing Candace Owens.
I love Candace.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And I've taken a lot of abuse for saying that, but I do. I know her, and I do. I think she's a great
As
person.
a person,
Yeah.
Forget the politics and anything, and largely why I'm sitting here. We've known each other for quite tangentially for 30 years.
Yes.
Is that she, as a human being, is a really, really good person.
Yep.
And thoughtful and generous and has a deep faith, and I just vehemently disagree with some of her positions.
I did want to talk about this for a second before we did it. I watched like the last half of this. I caught it when it was premiering, the last half. So I haven't seen this first hour either. But, you know, it struck me that, you know, Hunter, he's not a perfect guy by any means or a perfect speaker. You can see every now and again that, you know, he stumbles with his work. He's shot out. The guy is shot out. You know, and you can see that a little bit, you know, that he's fried his brains a little bit. But you cannot help but like this guy. The guy has real charisma. He's also an insightful person. And like I said the other day, authenticity is the word of the day, is the word of the era. People want authenticity, especially on here. Everybody's sick of the overproduced slop. And if Hunter Biden is anything, it's authentic. The guy is authentic. You know, he has nothing else. He has no other, you know, he doesn't have the pretense to lean on, none of that. I mean, you know, he doesn't have the facade. He's not able to BS his way out. And I think it's kind of endearing, actually.
And it used to be that way.
I remember.
Remember? I mean, when you and I knew each other, it wasn't as if our politics were much different.
Right.
And but everything has everything changed. And I attribute it to one thing. We can get to that, but
What's the one thing?
to Donald Trump. Everybody says, you know,
That's one thing about Biden is, man, dude, Donald Trump is this dude's nemesis, man. It's like his nemesis. I'm not even kidding. He does not like Donald Trump. And whenever he talks about him, it's like he spits on the ground every time. It's
a
weird.
symptom of the disease. And the reality is that I think he's one of the most transformational individuals in our political history for ill. And I think he had such an opportunity to do great things, and he just decided that all he was going to do was for himself. And but anyway, regardless, well, I mean, we got 2 hours to talk.
Look, we're from the same place.
Yeah.
I grew up with your high school girlfriend, I think. So I mean, I'm very familiar with.
Which one of these views is better? Is this one? Does it bother you guys that this one's got smaller caption or anything? Because if you want, I can bring it back out and do it, or just I'm down in the corner. Just asking.
World that you're from, because I'm sort of from it too. And I noticed the change during Obama. And I'm not blaming Obama. I'm not blaming but the society changed. It was like all of a sudden, if you didn't like Obama, you were a racist.
Yeah.
And I felt like in our neighborhood, that was the advice. You couldn't say anything about Obama that wasn't positive.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
No, I mean, I think that I had a completely, probably different perspective on that. But I don't discount if you say that you felt that way.
Well, it was before then. Like if it was Clinton,
Yeah.
you know, I knew a lot of Clinton staffers and you could be like, really, Monica Lewinsky? And they'd be like, yeah, Monica Lewinsky or Bush, you know, really the Iraq War? Yeah, the Iraq, you know, it was like, but people seemed to lose their sense of humor in 2008. I remember, at least my neighbors did. It was like, what did you, I'm sorry, did you say something about Obama that's not flattering? And that to me,
I can see how you would get that. You know what I mean? I mean, you're a public figure. You're on TV.
No, I mean at like dinner.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean,
and it was the ladies who were all about Obama. Remember that? It's like all this whole thing of like well-educated, humorless, rich white ladies. That all began during.
That may be the case. That wasn't. It understandably was not my experience.
No, that it wasn't.
And
so, how did you wind up deciding to speak in public? And first of all, with Candace, which I strongly approve of, but I just like, how did that happen?
So the first interview that I did was with Andrew Callahan, and who is a brilliant, in my opinion, journalist. And
there is something. There's something about Hunter that's genuinely charismatic, you know, and I feel like everybody's charismatic in a different way. You know, sometimes it can be kind of tough to put your finger on what it is somebody has. Anywho, he's got it. I'm not I can't put my thumb on it. Hunter, he's authentic, but I'm not sure. I don't think that sums it up though either.
Documentarian, and I didn't know anything about him, but I had a lawyer that had done some work for him that had also done some work for me, and he said, "Hey, you should check this guy out." And I did. And what I noticed about Andrew is that I believe he.
Oh, it's frozen. My bad. Shit. My bad. I was paying attention.
And for me, I
Damn.
realized is that
Such
the only way
Sorry
to
about that.
out was through, is owning the things that were true
Shit crashed.
and speaking truth to the things that were false. And I did that with Andrew, and I thought it would just be a one-off. But then a guy named you're close with him, and I consider him
Doing it again.
a friend by text. I don't want to sully his reputation.
Yeah.
Is Sean Ryan. And I sat down
Amazing
with Sean
man.
Ryan,
Amazing man.
and Sean is kind of, MAGA adjacent. He was between 2020 and 2024, and he had said some pretty rough things about my dad. Not so much about me, but about my dad that I vehemently disagreed with, and to this day vehemently disagree with. But I thought that Sean was a great listener, and I really appreciated his willingness to not allow what he had been instructed to believe to infect the way in which he listened. And I sat down with him, and we did close to 6 hours. And you kind of, I know that it's like, seems like this is a very public thing by virtue of everybody watching here. But the fact of the matter is these experiences in this long format can be very intimate.
Oh, big time.
And
Yeah.
and
True.
and that was my experience with Sean. And we connected on the thing that I have been able to connect with his presidency, and just assume that I was still using, because I mean, the New York Post, I think they printed 1.5 articles about me a day for almost close to 4 years.
That's crazy.
And none of it good, and all of it with
Not
pictures.
positive.
Not much of it was positive.
What a
No,
smart
not at
ass.
all. Anyway, long story a lot longer is
I'm
that,
having that experience with the New York Post at the moment.
yeah, by the way, welcome to my world.
Well, I'm not naked, but
Yeah, hopefully naked pictures don't come out. I could call some of our friends.
no one wants
Yeah,
to see those.
yeah. Well, I didn't think so either, but apparently they do.
Dude,
So anyway,
that
long
shit
story
killed
short,
me the
long
first
story
time
longer.
I heard that.
I
Oh,
go,
man.
and
He goes, what did he say? Yeah, they don't. Nobody wants to see me naked, and he's like, well, that's what I thought too, but apparently not so. That shit got me, man. Had me cracking up.
I did this with Sean, and Sean called, and this is public now, I can say it, is Sean had dinner with Candace. They live in the same neighborhood down there in Nashville. And he said, I really, really like her. And she told my wife that one of the interviews that she most wanted to do was with me, with Hunter Biden. I'm not referring myself in the third person right now. I haven't gotten to that point yet. And, I thought about it, and like you, and we've talked about this a little bit, but like you, Candace has said some really, really awful things, not just about me, but also about my dad, the whole Biden crime family thing, but really, really kind of pointed things. And I believe that
You didn't
if I
like
could
that.
sit down with her, not to convince her of anything, but to see that I was just as human as she was, and that I own my failings, and I've been incredibly transparent about them. I have, and I thought that if we could find that, commonality, that we could have an actual conversation, and that's what occurred. And And I don't agree with Candace still on a lot of stuff. And I almost feel like why do I have to make that, caveat as it relates to it? Because I never used to have to make that caveat. Going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, how did it change? I truly believe that the level of vitriol, meanness, and cruelty in our politics has always been there, but never like this. Never in a way in which it is practiced with impunity. And that to me has, I mean, I think that I can mark it. Now, it's interesting that you say that your experience is that kind of division started in 2008, but nothing like this, Tucker.
A lot of people hit that afternoon slump and immediately reach for another cup of coffee.
You're getting that from the comment section that I know you don't read,
No.
but other people in your organization read from, on X. You're getting that. I think we have literally been torn apart on purpose, because not because it was I don't think that the people that created the social media platforms that rule our lives to this day thought this is what we're going to do. We're going to create something just to tear people apart.
Yeah, that's kind of, oh shit, it's frozen again. But that's kind of the paradox with Hunter, is that he's messed up quite a bit. It's just, yeah, there's something relatable about him. What's up there, Mr. Good Times? Yeah, he seems more normal, seems more relatable, likable, more authentic, more like an average person. I don't know. It's crazy. It really is. And I'm not sure yet if his past is enough of a disqualifier. I'm not sure. I mean, I think to myself, would you want this guy? Like this guy, he's totally thrown, he's gone AWOL or dipped out on obligations because of, he just couldn't handle it or whatever, and went on runs, went on benders. Can he be trusted with any sort of responsibility today? And that would be, office, anything like that. I'm not sure. I mean, you can see obviously that, he's not as eloquent as he would be otherwise if he hadn't been an addict. I don't know. We'll find out, won't we? We're going to find out soon. Of course they did. Of course they did. It sounds like big tobacco. They did the same stuff. They knew that their drug was addictive or their product was addictive. They knew that it was bad for people. Oh, there's no audio? What the hell? Hang on. They knew it was bad for people. Wait, can you not hear this show?
This woman, whistleblower, comes forward. She brings all of the evidence that Facebook Meta knows about this.
Son of a bitch.
And she said, now what do we do about it? And you know what Congress did? Senate, House? No. You know what they did? Nothing. We have done absolutely
Well, it's just
nothing.
suicides of our people. I mean, not a big deal.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Bonkers. So I
And
couldn't agree more.
as it relates to our politics, is the same thing. We are being fed the equivalent of a suicide pact by organizations and companies that are run by the way, literally a handful of very, 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 not just generationally, but wealthy people to the degree that we haven't seen since the robber barons at the turn of the in 1900s and late 1800s. And those people, I'm not saying are evil, but what they have created is a tool. And a tool can be either a hammer can build a home, or it can tear.
God dang it.
Not
Well,
myopic enough to say that all of
I'm just
all
gonna
of the
leave it
issues that
like
we
that.
have. But going back to Donald Trump, because for me, the one existential threat that I think that we face as a country is Donald Trump. I am not this believer that Trump is merely the symptom of a disease. I believe that Trump is
I believe.
is central to why this disease has gone from a local epidemic to a pandemic in the United States of America.
It's not a defense of Trump to ask then
That's
why
silly.
on the big failures of the Trump administration, the real ones, the ones that, history will record, like this war, there's been no pushback from the other side at all.
Yeah.
So that tells you, I mean, you could say lots of things about Trump are bad, but getting us into a war we can't win, in which Americans are dying in
Not
Iran, that
good.
will only diminish America's power and bankrupt us. I mean, that's the only exit, really.
Yeah.
And make Iran stronger. And like, no, Chuck Schumer is like, yeah, it's bad. But of course he endorses, like, the whole leadership structure endorses that. So like, can't really say, like, they like Trump now.
Yeah. I don't know if they like Trump. I
Maybe
think
it's
it's
like
a little
he's
bit
obnoxious or whatever, but he's
yeah.
doing what they want.
I think it's a little bit of well, by the way, I don't disagree that there's an enormous failure of the of what I call the elite oligarch Epstein class of Washington D.C.
Yes.
that you and I both know
very well.
Yes, and that have that are as interested in protecting their.
Earlier when I was watching this, it occurred to me that you remember how Hunter was on. He was on the board of Burisma in the Ukraine. He was on the board of Chinese companies. And for some reason, for the life of me, I just cannot imagine Hunter Biden like rubbing elbows with those kind of big shots. I just don't see it. He just seems, like J Boss said, rather like a regular guy.
They're corporate overlords, as they are in protecting anything. And I mean, just take like the issue of stock trading. Okay.
Yeah.
My dad in 1972 took a vow that he would never own a stock or a bond. And he kept that vow since 1972 in over 50 years of public life. And he retired from the presidency as having probably the lowest net worth of anyone that had ever entered the presidency. And meanwhile, he got tagged with this idea that he, is the Biden crime family and that, all of that crap. But my point being is this, is that how is it that we have not been able to pass a law?
I couldn't agree more.
I know you do agree. But how is it possible? And it's not just Republicans.
Pass a law that prohibits members of Congress.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most common sense thing in the world. And it should be in the administration too. It should be anybody with the access to the most valuable insider information of all. And meanwhile, not only are we not passing the law, Donald.
Something that occurred to me too when he said this, when I was watching it the first time. If we want to get anything done that for ourselves, if we want to affect any change at all, if anybody does, you have to get powerful people on your side or become powerful yourself, one or the other. And I was thinking, like, that's the whole point of these politics and everything is it we're getting powerful people to fix this stuff for us. And the fact that he's kind of on our side, when at least as it in so far as Epstein and stuff goes, I mean, like, that's a good thing, I was thinking to myself, like, if people that rub elbows with the powerful, if they're talking about the stuff that you're talking about, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Trump is selling $100,000 early access to his True Social tweets, which is just a front running for insider trading, literally in the open. And that's what I mean the quantitative, qualitative difference of Donald Trump as compared to anything I've ever experienced in politics before is the sense that the rule of law is only applies as a weapon rather than as a prophylactic for the Constitution to be able to operate in a way in which the founders envisioned it.
Everybody knows that bleach is powerful, and you know that, but
I saw this guy. There's this incredible guy
tell me
on TikTok, and he's a professor, but he goes, it's a red cup garage. He's like and he, have you ever seen this? Well, you don't have any of this. He explains things by using red Solo cups.
Yeah.
And he has this thing. Everybody go look at it. It's all of the money that every president of the 45 that came before Donald Trump made in the presidency. Okay. And it's 4 blue Solo cups. Okay. And then all of the money that Donald Trump has openly said that he made in his financial report in the first 500 days of the presidency. And it is over $3 billion. And it takes the entire wall.
Yeah.
It's like, and
I mean, you can't argue that. I mean, presidents shouldn't make any money in office. Like,
no,
what is this?
No. And by the way, this whole idea of blind trust, and so that's what I mean by the qualitative and the quantitative difference.
Sorry.
And the idea that that there are still a group of people out there that voted for Donald Trump because they thought that they were going to be able to change things. You know, we talked about this a little bit and before we came on. But my hero, and I know that you are as it relates to in public life, people that is one of them, with all of his faults, was Teddy Roosevelt.
Great.
And Teddy Roosevelt,
signed picture of him over there to my great grandfather.
Exactly. Yeah. I got something for you, by the way. But Teddy Roosevelt, by all accounts, came very close to abusing the power of the executive.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, you think.
He certainly did.
But he did it because he realized that in order for this experiment to be able to continue, you could not have a unfettered oligarch class.
Yes.
That drained all of the wealth of a country and put it into their pockets.
You know, he's not wrong about this. That is something that Roosevelt was about. He was about busting up monopolies, a bunch of that stuff. You know, he fought big business to a large extent, big time. And that's what he's known for.
While the other 99, no, by the way, and people don't understand this, I'm not talking 1%. I'm talking the 0.01%.
Yes.
There are only 9,000, like a little over 9,000 families in this country who are billionaires out of 350 million people. You know what this is shocking to me. You know what puts you in the top 1% of income earners in this country?
No.
Annual? $750,000.
That's the top 1%?
1%. So the people that I'm not talking about taxing or redistributing wealth among the top 1%. I'm not talking about it even in the top 0.5%, which would be like $10 million. I'm talking about the 0.01%, literally about a little under 10,000 individuals in this country that control and that have almost like 40% of the entire wealth of a nation, who decide
9,000 families have 40% of the entire
wealth. Somebody do the numbers for me. I probably screwed that up completely, but an inordinate amount of the entire considered wealth of this country.
Well, you can't have democracy under those circumstances.
No, you can't. And Teddy Roosevelt knew that. And what he did is he went out and he used the power of the executive to be able to go out and bust the trust and redistribute that wealth. Called it the square deal. And then he used the power of the executive to do things that are every single one of us still benefits from today, which is, for instance, the national park system.
Yes.
The entire national park system was the brainchild of one person as it related to one island, which was Audubon. And he came to Teddy Roosevelt and he said, "Hey, look, we're losing this magnificent place, this island off in the Gulf off the coast of Florida, and because it's a bird habitat that has, I don't know, like half the species of wild birds." And he comes to Teddy Roosevelt, and Teddy Roosevelt just goes out and he says, "Okay," and he turned it into the first national park, I think. And then he went out and he did that across the country. I mean, can you imagine doing that today?
No.
No. But can you even imagine the people not the people, Donald Trump having a thought about using the power of the executive to benefit anyone but himself first?
No.
No. And that's the thing.
But I also look back on the last 25 years, 20 years anyway, and I can't really think of many big executive initiatives that like benefited the majority.
No, neither do I. And that may be a question about the unitary executive but no one has ever done it in a way in which where literally I believe that everything that he has done it contains not just an underlying current of how does it benefit him personally. It is the first thought of everything that he does.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
The problem I have with focusing on Trump, and I'm trying not to be defensive because obviously I campaigned for Trump and with Trump and spoke at the Republican National Convention and defended Trump for a decade on Fox News. So I'm definitely implicated in it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just defensiveness. I think two things. One, focusing on Trump as the source of all evil in the world drives you crazy. Like I saw that happen to my
I don't
neighbors.
believe that. Just, I don't believe that he's the source of all evil.
Right. But you know, people who feel that way, who
remotely.
literally, I had one of my closest friends went off the deep end.
Yeah.
Just like, Trump. And all of a sudden Trump's under the bed and it's like, whoa. Yeah. It's monomania.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like.
He was under my bed. just
okay, that is funny.
Along with some of his friends.
Listen to that guy.
Oh.
He was under
But
my
second,
bed.
it's like exculpatory to the rest of us. It's like, I don't
That's
know.
funny.
I watched a lot of crappy stuff happen in DC over the 35 years I lived there, and I didn't even recognize it as crappy at the time. And we're all kind of implicated in this. We've had a lot of bad leaders, actually, or mediocre leaders. I don't know. We've had a flamboyantly corrupt leader like this, and we haven't ever. That's true. We've had a lot of low grade kind of like what's in it for me leadership. And we tolerated it and we celebrated things that were not impressive at all and pretended they were impressive and, ooh, so brave and all this. Is like, it was all crap, actually. This is the end of like a long cycle of mediocrity. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So I've owned up.
Absolutely.
Okay. To, like, for instance, I'm absolutely certain that my engagement in Washington, D.C., when I took on Burisma, when my dad was vice president as a client at the end of the year, is like, it was a stupid thing to do. Yeah. Because I wasn't fully aware of of what a swamp it was and the narrative that would be able to be spun. It was
a bunch of horse
It was
shit.
a horrible idea. Now, I had my reasons, okay, but they're not good enough. I own that.
Well, duh.
I own the idea that I do believe that there is this revolving door in Washington, D.C. that needs to be shut, in which people come in and out of it.
Bro, that revolving door was literally your bread and butter. Like, literally.
Administrations, we know them all.
They're trading on access.
And they're not bad people that are trading on access. I did not trade on access. You can look through 22 years of but I know this. I know that I received incredible privileges that no one else in the world, including to the point of my pardon. No, literally, there's no one else in the world.
It must be nice.
That
must be nice.
Their father happened to have the authority and the power to do it. And I realize how privileged I am.
How could you not?
I think that there is I think that there needs to be a reckoning with if I'm willing to do that. I think that you and I saw I like Thomas Massey. I like where Marjorie Taylor Greene is going. I like that there are people that have kind of woken up to but a lot of the reason that we're here is because of Fox News. A lot of it has to do.
Well, we're in a war right now because we're losing because of Fox News. I couldn't agree more.
And so I just think that
convenient.
I don't think that every problem this country faces is because of Donald Trump. I don't think that he is the source of all evil. I don't even remotely believe that. I do believe this though. We are at an inflection point in this country. Whether it's because of the technology as it relates to AI and as it relates to our debt. And the fact that Donald Trump is responsible for 20% of the entire debt of the entire nation over the course of the.
If Donald Trump hadn't been in office, it would just be some other douchebag that would be responsible for 20% of our debt. That debt was going to get taken out, whether Trump did it or Hillary did it we would still have that 20% debt. And blaming it on Trump, I think that's it's not very productive. Like, it's just kind of blaming, what blame is for God and small children. That's who blame is for. Blame doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Since its inception.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
And we are in desperate need of leadership.
I agree.
And so I want to reach across to everybody and say, like, look, let's figure out what the things that we can agree on, instead of like pointing, and constantly. And one of the things that I think that we can agree on is that we have the exact wrong leadership at the exact wrong time.
Homeownership has always been at the center of the American dream. It is an actual asset, a place people work their entire lives to build, a place of stability and security and real value. Right now, though, too many homeowners are stuck swiping financing.net/Tucker. So I think you're kind of making my point, which is that, finger pointing is unhelpful, except when we point fingers at ourselves. That is very helpful.
Very
it's
helpful.
Very important to say. That's kind of what I was inarticulately trying to express to you, which is like, it gets the rest of us off the hook to point to one guy and be like, it's all his fault. It's like, actually, it's all of our fault, including mine.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was trying to say right there. It's convenient for them to blame all this shit on Trump, but they're a part of it too. They furthered it. They've led for it. I don't want to hear that shit.
Famously advocated for the Iraq War and thought that was the last stupid thing I was ever going to do. It turns out it wasn't. I advocated for all kinds of things that I now regret advocating for.
Particularly the things that you said about me.
It's a deep regret. No, I do actually. I mean, I regret in the sense that as someone who has dealt with addiction, not quite as in exciting ways you did, but I've been there for sure. Extend grace to people who are out of their minds. Like, you would think I would do that. I should have done that more. So I do regret that. But no, what I'm saying is, like, you look back and, like, I really thought that I could influence Trump into
talk about that.
Not going into this war.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point.
No, I mean, that's the core of it right there.
Because you said the things that you said about Trump after 2020, which are famously out there.
When I got pissed in a text with a producer,
which,
and then Fox
out of
News leaked
context,
that text.
and all that.
The New York Times,
exactly. Yeah, one wonderful organization you work for.
Right.
Really ridiculous.
And so,
pretty crooked.
Talk about how you came around in 2024, not as it relates to, like, you just knee-jerk reaction to being opposed to Democrats, but why?
Oh no, it was a very specific trajectory. I was. This is like such an impossible rich guy thing to say, but it's just a fact. I was in Europe with my kids on the Med, August of 2023, I think, and Mar-a-Lago got raided. And that was ridiculous. On a documents charge, really? And I'm from the city, so, like, I know a lot about the documents stuff. Yeah. And it was, like, transparently absurd. They're literally sending armed FBI agents into his bathroom. Like, no. And so to me, what that said was, Trump is actually being persecuted by the Uniparty. Therefore, he is its sincere opponent. And my overriding feeling, since I wrote a whole book on this 10 years ago, is that the problem in Washington is that on the big questions of the economy and foreign policy, both parties agree. It's the agreement that is the threat, not the disagreement. So I thought that, and I thought, well, Trump is clear. They're trying to put him in jail on these nonsense charges, and they are not. They were nonsense. Well, they're nuclear secrets. That's not true. And I was like, so he clearly is their opponent. So I thought, and this is my sin, I can have an effect. And my goal, literally from that moment up until February 28th, was I don't want to go to war with Iran. Because I really saw that as the end of a lot of stuff, of the post-war order, which is kind of ridiculous, but compared to what? I'm kind of against the post-war order. On the other hand, I'm not sure what follows would be better. Yeah. So I was really focused on this Iran thing. And I knew that both parties were for it. Schumer's totally for it. Lindsey Graham's totally for it. They're all colluding against America to start this regime change war with Iran. And I was like, I'm going to single-mindedly focus on it. That's all I'm going to do with my life is and I knew a lot of people in the Middle East, and I thought, oh man, I can do this. And I realized on February 28th, first of all, I had zero power, okay? But it was mostly vanity. I was like, I have a mission. I can do this. And it was, I overstated my own influence, like, dramatically in a very embarrassing way. And my own importance. And, like, I thought I could do things that, like, I had no control over any of this stuff. And I was humiliated correctly. Mm-hmm. I was humiliated in front of my wife. I was like, you're doing a good thing. And so, yeah, I was mad at Trump, but I was also really mad at myself. And so that's the story. And I actually am really grateful I went through that.
Yeah.
Because it puts your own power in context. You think like you've got all this, whatever, SWAT, and you have zero.
Yeah.
None.
So what next?
I have no idea. But
No, I mean, really, though,
what, for me?
Yeah, not just for you, but what next for all of us? Like, I am, I've been out talking to people, and completely different audiences, across the board, and the most significant reason of why I decided to go out and talk is that what I realize is that my experience is not only not unique, it's almost universal. Now, to the degree that my experience, my addiction, overwhelmed me, is sometimes often exaggerated by virtue of how much attention has been paid to it. There's 2 years of my life.
So people noticed.
Yeah, some people noticed. Oh, yeah, exactly. God, it was awful. I mean, notice to the degree that, my wife and I were living in the hills in LA, and we had this little place, and it was just early in my recovery. And Trump from the Oval Office invited in these right-wing influencers, these MAGA influencers online. And this is back in 2019. And he started the Where's Hunter thing. And the next day, the New York Post printed an aerial photograph of the house that I live in, where you could stand on the street below to be able to look through the floor-to-ceiling windows. And a group of men with bullhorns and MAGA hats showed up at the door, banging on the door, with my then pregnant wife, who was home alone, who literally fled the house. They chased her in a car and literally ran her off the road. And that was my experience for like a 2-year period of time until my dad was elected. And then we got Secret Service, and we'd left that house because in the middle of the night. And and the next house we went to, they found us, and this documentary filmmaker ended up being like he wrote a whole scripted film. He parked a billboard truck.
We're in LA.
Yeah, in LA, in Venice. I was right on
Yep.
South Venice Boulevard. He parked a one of those digital billboard trucks in front of my house that ran all of the nude pictures of me smoking crack
Actually?
for a
Crazy.
week straight, and then sat
Damn.
on the canal
What an asshole.
with bullhorns
Who does
in a
that?
canoe and just shouted at my house over and over again for a week. Then we had to leave that house.
Did you know him?
Yeah. No, God, no. Some crazy guy, I mean, he was not crazy. He was, he then went on to make a whole movie about me.
That's weird.
But anyway, my point.
Did you see it?
What?
Did you see
No, I didn't. I did not see it. Do not go see that movie.
it? I didn't know it existed, but then,
my point is that I have the total exposure that I've had has given me this incredible gift. And number one is that by that transparency is that I don't have any more secrets, and the secrets that I felt ashamed of, like just the word crack. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so heavy. It shocks people. All of the associations that people make out of, particularly of our generation.
yes.
And to be able to speak about it openly. And what I found is this deep connection with people. There's no wall between me and them anymore. And because they know all of my flaws, the ones that you would never want to show anyone. And they know I'm willing to talk about them. And in that, they're able to come up to me and say, I mean, everywhere I go, when I got off the plane in the airport, someone came up to me, told me about their experience in recovery. Thanks for what I'm doing. They got their brother just got arrested though, is in jail. You got to do something about the fentanyl deaths here. It's everybody. And it's been an incredibly beautiful.
I wonder what that guy was doing talking to Hunter Biden as though he's in a position to change it.
Beautiful experience.
I guess he's in more of a position than the guy he was, I suppose.
I say to everybody is that I'll talk about the politics, but it's really the bait to be able to talk about the thing that connects us. And so all the way back, sitting down with Candace is that the thing that Candace and I were able to connect on in a very human way was her own experience, not personally, but with her family and addiction and the people that she loved. And I don't know anyone that hasn't been impacted by it.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And I guess what my point is that by starting there for me, I feel like our connection as relates to it. I've known you've been sober for well over 20 years now.
24 years this month.
24 years this month. And so you're,
that's something I never could understand. Keeping track of how long you've been clean or sober or without something, to me, that just says how much it bothers you. Like, although I suppose you consider that kind of, like, I considered myself done with all that stuff when I did sort of have to go back and like look.
Your capacity to be able to understand,
because if you know
at that level, and also at a family level,
exactly how many days it's been, and it's been 10 years, yeah, that's weird. If you know exactly how many weeks, I mean, it's just, being like too focused on that.
Oh yeah,
makes it a lot easier to see the Hunter that you thought that you knew. And I think, and by the way, I'm not putting words into your mouth.
No, I think that's 100% true.
But the thing for me is that with you, the transformation, not transformation, because it's not a transformation. Anybody that knows you realizes it's not a transformation.
What's up, Q?
Is out on your own now. And not understandably, like anybody that has a job, being beholden to a corporate structure.
Yeah.
Fox News. Is that I feel as if that combined with the incredible ultimate betrayal, and what I mean by betrayal of the promise, the singular promise that was important to you as it related to Trump.
Yes.
That we would not get into the potential of ending up in a World War III or another incredibly devastating, protracted war in that region. That would expand clearly with the entire global oil supply in jeopardy.
It's so crazy. I cannot even believe it happened.
Is that it has given an opening for us to be able to have a conversation that is more constructive about a way forward. That's my feeling.
I strongly agree with that.
You know, one thing that might make you feel a little better about your life is buying life insurance. Because life ends and the life obviously vary, but we think they're
right.
I can't remember.
Anyway,
so much drama has happened, but if you're in the news business or politics, like people call you, there's this thing, you hear everything all the time, and like how much is true, you don't know. I heard about the laptop, and then I heard, so you don't know if it's real, and then I heard somebody calls me and goes, "You're on the laptop," and because you had written a letter of recommendation for college for my son, who didn't end up going to the school or even getting in, but whatever. It didn't help, it turns out.
Oh, thanks.
But anyway, I knew that it was real because who would know that we knew each other, right? No one could fake that, and that our wives were friends and all that stuff. So, but it's Washington, everybody there. Yeah. So then I hear this story about how, then the official story comes out about how the laptop was left. You left a couple of laptops in a laptop repair store in Greenville, Delaware, which a town I'm very familiar with. So, and the guy was blind. Then I interviewed the guy who seemed to totally believe the story, John McIsaac. I mean, he seemed to be telling the truth. But the story did not make sense. Meanwhile, we get approached by Israelis connected to Benjamin Netanyahu, like I know that, who are shopping this stuff to me at Fox News.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think that part of the story, the laptop is real. I thought that from day one. But the way that it entered the bloodstream of the American media was not real. So I just want to ask you point blank, did you drop off laptops?
No. And this is the thing that I've said over and over again. I have literally zero recollection or memory of ever dropping off a laptop at John Paul McIsaac's. No, the answer is no. And John Paul McIsaac.
Wild.
So John Paul McIsaac, who's legally blind, who on the day when the laptop became public.
So it's not like he could identify Hunter. What the fuck? What kind of chicanery is that? Chicanery and skullduggery, if I ever heard it.
Sat outside of his shop and gave an interview and flat out says that he doesn't remember seeing me. He couldn't identify me. And also that his security cameras that he has don't have any footage from that time. And so regardless of anything, just this, the laptop, according to Lev Parnas, under oath in his testimony before the House Oversight Committee, was being sought by Rudy Giuliani in Ukraine all the way back in 2018. And so Rudy Giuliani is working with a guy named Andrei Derkach, who was a MP in Ukraine and a known Russian GRU agent. So Rudy goes over there and basically takes his dossier and receives information that Hunter Biden's hard drive, not laptop, is for sale. And and the person that they can go to is this other Ukrainian Russian oligarch who is living in Austria. That's what Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman were doing, getting on the plane before they were arrested.
So how did
before John Paul McIsaac was ever a twinkle in anybody's eye?
I believe that the story that was always the weak part of the story. Like he drops off laptops.
Even
and
John
them.
Paul McIsaac, okay, there is no such thing as a laptop. The laptop that he eventually turns over a year later, 18 months later, to the FBI. The thing that is distributed and disseminated that John Paul McIsaac claims that he got off of a device was a hard drive. And that hard drive had a limited amount of information, a limited amount of like gigabytes. I don't know the difference between a gigabyte and a whatever. And that goes into the hands. He somehow can't find anybody. You can't throw a stone in Trolley Square without hitting someone that knows me personally.
Right.
And he knows that. He lived there his whole life. Instead, what he finds through this guy, Applebaum.
You know, it's funny you say that question. When I was listening to him earlier, I was thinking, man, there's something about, or like, you know, I guess it's genetics, but like, you know, when father and son really sound like each other, but it's not always that way. Or maybe it's just we don't hear other people's. I mean, I sound like my dad and my brothers sound just like me, but I was thinking that same thing, like, wow, man, this guy, he sounds just like his old man, but slightly more nasally. It's funny. I was thinking about why that is. I guess maybe it's just the shape of our esophagus, you know, all those different things. And I guess he's a lot like his father, or all the things that go in to make your voice. I don't know. I would just thought the same thing. It really struck me how similar the two guys really are.
Is Rudy Giuliani's lawyer.
Come on, man. Come on,
he turns over
man.
this hard drive. The hard drive becomes the platform from which all of the other stolen information from, which, by the way, every single forensic expert has made it clear, is that there's no possible way all of the information that was eventually labeled as my laptop came from one laptop. It's like it's way too large.
Came off the cloud.
Exactly. They hacked my cloud. I read about this in this book.
One.
So on Substack, I'm like laying all of this out, and there's a whole the NDI, the whole thing about there's these different silos. There's the Netanyahu silo, the Israeli side, there is a Russian-Ukrainian side of it, and then there are the U.S. actors that include Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Miles Gao, and a whole bunch of, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman and all of these guys.
Well, once the material starts circulating, the data from the cloud, all kinds of people get involved, and they're shopping it for different reasons, and I agree.
Yes, and so, but my point is...
Who stole it?
Well, from the cloud?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You have as good a guess as mine in terms of actually who was the original hacker of that information, who has the capacity to be able to do it. And so, I have.
But
my,
you don't
I
have evidence.
I don't have a digital forensic evidence that it was hacked by this person or this entity or this organization, that it was Mossad or that it was the GRU or that it was some kid in his basement and that figured it out. But here's the point. Overall, here's the thing: is I get caught in these conversations about all of this. But the reality is this: of what was distributed that was authentic, it's all mine. All those emails.
Yeah, I know.
Buckley. And you know what?
That's the one thing. The one thing is all that is kind of moot. All that really matters at this point is that the stuff is out there, public, and it's real. Although I get why he's kind of under the or behind the 8 ball, so it's like, he kind of has to get it, or he has to salvage as much as he can.
One of them proves of any criminality of my father whatsoever, of any way in which I ever sent an email saying, hey, Dad, I need you to get this done on behalf of a client of mine. Now, I think that's dispositive. And I challenge anybody, because it's all out there. The entire digital footprint. And I'm not just talking about my emails. I'm talking about, or 20 years of emails. I'm talking about 20 years of text messages. I'm talking about erased voicemails, like deleted voicemails. Deleted photographs.
They don't actually delete, is what you're saying.
They clearly don't. I mean, voicemails from my dad to me. But that's not the only voicemail that was out there. But not a single one of them in which I say, hey, when my dad is in office or in power as vice president or president, in which I say, hey, Dad, I need you to do this for me, or even contacting one of his staffers. So either I'm incredibly good at, inactive addiction as a crack addict, or it doesn't exist. It truly, literally doesn't exist. The entire narrative of the Biden crime family, I mean, I literally, unlike anybody else, is like, I say to everybody, okay, show me your phone, because I showed you mine and you didn't find a goddamn thing. Not one thing. Every investigative body in the United States of America has investigated me for over 10 years at that point, and not one single thing of criminal activity other than use of drugs and all of the things that are associated with addiction is proved by the laptop.
So is the world getting more stable or less stable? That's a rhetorical question. We're not in charge of the world. When did you find out that the contents of your digital life were in circulation?
That day that the New York Post released it.
You had no idea?
No idea.
I thought the same thing, Mackenzie.
What were you doing that day? How did you find out?
So it was like 2 weeks before the election, right? October.
So up until that day, you had no clue? Because the FBI had the material.
None. No clue. Zero.
I'm sorry, I stepped on your answers. What were you doing that day when you found out?
I was with Melissa, and Bo was, let's see, about 6 months old. And a friend of ours, we were in LA, and a friend of ours said, hey, come out to Palm Springs. I got a Airbnb on like a golf course there, and it's really cool. You guys never been out there, and it's like we're in the home stretch now. It's like, I have survived because even before the laptop, remember, they were beating the shit out of me. That's when Donald Trump was doing the Where's Hunter thing. I didn't have any security like I don't have today, but I didn't have then. It was just me and Melissa and a baby, and anytime we went outside the house, is like people would follow us everywhere. And not just to follow us, but to harass us. And because Donald Trump was going to his rallies, and his big line was, and they were selling shirts, Where's Hunter? So everybody felt it was incumbent upon them, if they supported Trump and MAGA, to find Hunter, to go and find Where's Hunter.
Oh,
and so we drive out to Palm Springs, and we get there, and we unpack, put my bag in the room, and there's like a little plunge pool out of the back of this little house. And I get a call, and it's a friend of mine who was also my lawyer at the time. And he said, some guy saying, the New York Post is saying somebody has your laptop. And, it took me years to piece it all together. And so one of the things that I've done over the course of the last 7 years, other than paint, which became literally I've always painted, but it was literally the thing that saved my life. It just allowed me to focus and occupy my hands in a productive way in which I felt that I was creating, and also allowed me to get out of myself and not be consumed by the shame and of my addiction and all the failings that I perceived in myself at that moment in time, which, in early addiction, and not just through your own experience, but through the experience of watching others, is a really tenuous time. And I've done a lot of writing, and it took me a long time to figure this out. Like, what happened? How did this? Who was involved? And there's all of these names, and there's like a list of 20 Russian names and 20, all of this stuff. And so I decided on Substack what I could do is I could basically do the first draft of that and get the audience potentially to participate and give me more information. So I'm doing that on Substack now. And the thing about it is this, is that it was a complete and utter surprise to me. I had like, I was, a little over a year into my recovery. I kind of made it through the like what I thought that was the worst of it. And then we were just literally thrown in the middle of it. And the worst thing happened is that because they were nude pictures, and this is the only reason that Twitter took them down and Facebook took them down, is they violated their own internal rules as it relates to revenge porn. You're not allowed to publish nude photographs of anyone without their consent, no matter what, for whatever reason. And so that's why on the front page of the New York Post and the story associated on the digital with all of the links were like a ton of nude photos of me. I'm just barely blurred out of the women that were in it. All consensual, legal, all those things. Of course, they don't make that point. And that's why they took it down. But then that became the story, the suppression and this idea that 40 former intelligence officers said it had all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation.
Well, I bet they do.
No one in that 40, regardless of what you think of them. Okay?
Not much.
Yeah, I know you don't. But no one in that 40 ever said that the laptop wasn't real. But that's what everybody on the right decided to say.
That first of all,
yeah,
the intel people are the most dishonest people in our society.
By the way, I'm not going to argue on behalf of anybody. All I know is let's just stick to me.
But I'm just saying, the point of that statement was to suggest that the contents were not real.
Well, you may think that, but it definitely did not say that. And all I know is this: it became completely out of my control. So therefore, now I was not arguing about what was on it. Remember what Rudy Giuliani did? He went to literally the courthouse steps in Newcastle County with Bernie Carrick, and he held a laptop, which there's no existing laptop. He had taken a hard drive or a thumb drive and put it and pretended like there was a laptop. And the one thing he said was, "This contains images of minor children," which bullshit. I mean, an absolute, complete, and utter effing lie. And that's what he did. Because you know what it didn't have on it? It had no evidence, and they had it for over a year at this point. It had no evidence of anything other than I was a drug user. But the problem was, and not only drug user, but crack addict. And the problem is that I had gone about 9 months before, and I had done an interview with the New Yorker. And I admitted everything as it relates to my addiction. It's probably one of the smartest decisions I made, not in conjunction with anybody, but literally me and Melissa sitting there. And I said, I'm gonna tell this guy everything. I have to get it off my chest. I can't have this hanging out there as my dad moves through a presidential campaign, and let the chips fall where they may. And it totally scooped them. And so what they had to do is create another narrative around it that is evidence of corruption. So when anybody says Hunter Biden, what's your first thought? Laptop. Can
I just say one thing though, that this is what I experienced during that time? The allegation that there was abuse of minors proven on the laptop, that came from the Israelis. I'm just telling you that. They came to me with that. So I know that. And one of the things that enraged me about the statement from those sleazy intel guys is that they blame the Russians for it. Now, maybe the Russians had a hand in it, but it was the Israelis who were pushing that. Fact. I mean, literally to me.
Yeah.
So,
and you've gone through it.
But they're all such slaves.
Is there
to
anything?
Israel.
I want to clear with your entire, not a single thing in anything that is in any way true about that.
Well, that's such a serious crime that I think it's just common sense that if there was evidence of that,
you think that it's common sense. But I'll tell you what, about 40 million people on X don't think that. I mean, it's like
there was an abuse of minors in there. If there was evidence,
how many people call me a pedophile to this day? Anyway, I'll spare you. But I'm not. But I agree with you. That's exactly right. And it's
But they were pushing that so hard, and all the intel guys were like, "Oh, it's Russia." It's like, you lie, because they called me. I sent one of my producers out to go meet with one of a guy connected to Netanyahu. They were behind that, and I felt that everybody in DC knew that, but there was so much pressure never to criticize Israel in any way that they were just like, "Oh, it's the Russians. Oh, it's the Russians. They're the ones penetrating our political system." It's like, you lie. Everyone knows what's actually happening. This was my perspective, and it drove me insane. And by the way, I didn't say that on Fox News. I'll admit it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. You're right. I just want to say I was part of the problem also, but I knew it.
But that's the thing, Tucker.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it? So we're here now.
Yeah. No, I didn't say it was the Israelis.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. But we're here now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why, just on a purely selfish basis for me, is that like I don't know how you could possibly have thought that of me. And by not saying it, I thought.
Well, the thing with Tucker, and you know, like I say, he's charismatic. The guy is authentic. But do you see when they were just talking about, I guess it was the Israeli intel guys, did you see how animated Hunter got right there? I mean, that's what people mean when they say authentic. The guy wears his heart on his sleeve. You know what he's thinking. You know, when that obviously that got under his collar, but he immediately perked up and gets real animated, that's likable. There's something likable about that. The way that he, you know, a lot of these scummy politicians, it's like they never break character. You can never see what they're thinking. You can never see what they're feeling. And he doesn't really embody that. It's refreshing because most people we see on TV, camera, YouTube, whatever, they're just playing some part. They're just locked into some disgusting role. And when you see somebody up in that strata of society, it's refreshing. That's what I gather.
That you thought that of me. I mean, it was it's like I am, it is.
Thought that the child molestation thing?
Or whatever. Yeah. All the stuff that they were saying,
yeah.
or any of it. You know what I mean? Like
well, people addicted to drugs, especially cocaine, I know for a fact, get pretty dark. That's just a fact.
True.
They do. They do. They definitely do. And
yeah.
And the cocaine
By
thing.
By the way, it's all there.
No, I guess
you can watch it all.
I guess I don't need to tell you that.
You can see the
but
motel
I've seen
rooms,
it.
and
You're not
that's
the only
thing.
person I've seen this.
Exactly. But there's a big
screws
difference.
Up your sex thing.
Yeah, there's a big difference between that and the reality of what's out there, which is the worst thing that you could possibly say about any. And that's my point. My point is that I thought I was over it. I was in Palm Springs. I was there for about 3 hours. It was the first time that Melissa and I had gone away. Because remember, we're still in that kind of COVID period and people. And so we're out there and I get this call and it just like your whole world kind of like, you know, you just like this kind of void opens up and you just like think that you're about to get sucked into it. Because what's the worst thing that you could ever say about someone, in my opinion? Is the reality that and that's what Rudy Giuliani was saying. And
were you ever close to going back on drugs during this period?
No. And because I knew this.
Good to see you here, Alex.
Is that I don't want to give people the impression that it's not available to them, but it was a miracle. The miracle of my life at that moment, despite that, despite all of these consequences, like just not, I mean, landing like nuclear bombs in my life, is that I was in a better place and continue to be in a better place than I've ever been in my life. So it's like, you know, I've been stripped to the bone. There was no facade. Like you have to, the entirety of my ego was destroyed. Like all of those things that you protect that out of fear. Well, yes. You don't realize that they're out of fear, but almost all of them are out of fear. It's right. Like what you're talking about, the vanity.
Yeah.
You know, I was, like I said at the beginning, I was rewatching Othello again last night. It was really weird because there's this scene where a guy, he gets drunk and ends up getting fired from being an officer of Othello's. And after he gets fired, he starts freaking out. He's drunk, but he starts freaking out. He's like about his reputation and how he's lost his reputation. He's lost the most immortal, the immortal part of himself. And all that's left is bestial and you know, animalistic. And it occurred to me when you think of reputation, it's this abstract thing. But really, what reputation actually is. It's the feeling you get when you've done something that changes what other people think of you. You know, have you ever done something that once you did it, you couldn't take it back? You were going to wear that for the rest of your life, whether you wanted to or not. Like, it was weird because I've heard people talk about reputation my entire life. And it wasn't until that instant I knew the feeling or how I interpret reputation. In that moment, the two became one, the word reputation and what I feel is my reputation. Because you know what your reputation is when you've lost it or lost a part of it or something. And it was just really weird because all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second. What I used to think of as this feeling, that's what people are talking about when they talk about your reputation. You know, when you do something that people are going to remember you by, or people, because he got drunk and made a fool of himself and cut and stabbed somebody. And I don't know, it was just really weird, but something clicked in that moment. And it was kind of a profound click, you know, because a lot of ideas and social ideas are so abstract. And it's like you have to live, and you could live half your life without ever really understanding what people mean when they talk about these abstract ideas. Because reputation, it's a real thing. But whether or not you associate that with the word reputation, I don't know. I don't know exactly what I was getting at by that. It was just very profound. And it's weird because I've lost reputation in my life. And it wasn't until that I really realized, oh, that's what, I mean, I get what the word means. Anyway, I digress.
Could change the course of the the administration of history, of being there, and that you could overlook all of the things that you know of him in order to save the world. Like, that's a beautiful thing to hear someone admit to being that introspective, to be able to do that. In the same way, I was so emasculated that I had to make a decision to live or die. And in the living, I had to live in that emasculation, that completely stripping of ego. And it wasn't instant. And it wasn't like I woke up the next morning and didn't think like the sun would ever come up, which I kind of felt.
Yeah.
But then Bowie woke up, you know, and it was a little 9-month-old or 6-month-old at the time. And I look at this amazingly magnificent woman that has saved me, that is lying there. And I thought, you know what? I have to choose to live. Like I want this life. I want this love. I don't want to be afraid. I'm going to choose to live. And then it just became a matter of moment by moment having to make that choice at the beginning.
How did you meet your wife and get sober?
I know, it's a crazy story. And I wrote about it. And I said that if any of my children came to me and told me this story, I would probably have them committed. But it was truly love at first sight. A long story that I've written about, but and I was in active addiction and staying at a hotel and
where?
At the Petit Hermitage in West Hollywood at the time, which is
I know
a
well.
neat hotel. Yeah. And I was at the pool. I got kicked out the next day, but
on the roof.
On the roof. And these two people sat down next to me where I was alone. I was reading a book, and they struck up a conversation as the pool kind of filled up during the day. And at one point, they turned to each other. No, I never met them before. I said, "You have to meet our friend Melissa." And I said, "Sure." And I had no intention of meeting anyone. I'd gone to LA basically to choose the coward's way out of suicide, which was I knew that the drugs and drinking would eventually take me, and I had broken all contact with anyone that cared for me or loved me, and they called every day, and I just didn't answer. And I'm sitting there
Oof.
And it was an incredibly, incredibly dark moment in my life, and the darkest. And for some reason, I did this thing. I said, yeah, just give me your number. I'll call. Because they insisted that I call this woman. And I said, I can remember any number. If you tell me a number, I can remember it. And
Cool.
of course, I I can't remember a number, but it was my way of getting out of the situation. And I'd left my book there. So like 2 hours later, I came back to pick up my book on the chase lounge that I left at. And the woman said, "What's the number?" And I said, and she said, "I knew you were lying." And she had a pen in her hand, and she wrote it on my hand. And that night, I was taking a shower, and the difference between 9 o'clock at night and 2:30 in the morning. I literally was staying up 10 days at a time. I mean, it was awful. And I'm about to wash this off my hand. I think I should probably really call this woman. So I texted that number, and I said, "Hey, your friends gave me your number. Would you like to get a drink?" And
At 2:30 in the morning?
2:30 in the morning. And the response I got back was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, "Who the F is this? And it's 2:30 in the morning. No." And for some reason, in the morning, I felt like that was really.
Geez, sorry about that. Fucking bullshit just cut out on me again.
Rude, and I don't know where that it came from in me. The feeling that I needed to apologize and say I would like to buy you lunch. I didn't realize the time. And she had no idea who I was. I mean, none. And except for her friends met this guy at a pool, and so she says that they said you really need to go meet him, and she said she'd be over for lunch, and then it was 1 o'clock, and then it was 2 o'clock, and then it was she'd be there in half an hour, and then it was 4 o'clock, and then it was 6. And finally, sometime
Did you know
early
anything about this one?
What?
Did you
nothing? Literally nothing.
Just her first name.
Yeah, and that's it. Nothing. Not a picture. Not anything. And I walk up, and now I'm over at the Sunset Marquee, which is up the hill, because every hotel I would say I didn't do anything wrong. It was just like the cast of characters that would be in and out of my room. They decided that in the morning, we don't have we don't have availability. The hotel looks empty to me. Well, and so I had moved over to this other hotel, and this when I still had a little bit of money to be able to pay hotel bills, and I wasn't in the Super 8. But I walk up, and there's this outdoor seating area, and I see this woman, and she was wearing a denim shirt, just like this. And I walk up to the table, and I know this sounds melodramatic and like I'm making it up, but I looked in her eyes, and I saw eyes that saw me. And I said, "I know that this sounds crazy, but I'm in love with you."
That's the first thing you said to a woman you never met before?
The first thing.
That's incredible. I believe him too. I believe him. I mean, and I guess maybe he's like he said, maybe it sounds corny, but I don't know that like the guy, like I said, the guy has something. Maybe it's believability, or I don't know what it is, but I believe him there. And I would imagine she believed this guy. She believed him when he said that to her. I mean, like that shit convinced me. I was convinced right there. I believe this dude, at least for that. When he says that, and I would imagine his wife believed that as well. Good on him. I mean,
And again, I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And the craziest part is, though, the miracle of it is that she didn't run. She saw through me. I mean, she saw not through me. She saw me. And within 3 hours, I had told her everything that I had not told the people that tried to love me back into existence for the previous 2 years. She literally was. And I said, about 2 hours in, I said, I'm addicted to crack cocaine. Like I'm killing myself. She said, that ends today. And it didn't end that day. It ended, the crack ended within a week, and then the alcohol, and the alcohol ended.
I was thinking that too, like when he said that about, she wasn't really making all that big of a gamble. She knows who your dad is, but hey, what's up, Night Train? Welcome back. At the same time, though, man, it's not 100% that she knew who his dad was. But either way, though, the guy's still a hardcore crackhead. That's still a very big gamble, dude. What, hitching your wagon to a crackhead, bro? That, man, I don't know, dude. I don't know if his dad being that way is, weighs more than that. But dude, nobody hitches their wagon to a raging drug addict. Nah.
Within like
Not
20
if
days.
they're bullshit.
At tapering. In June, I count June 1st as my sobriety date.
If it is better.
And from that moment I said that to her, we were married 10 days later.
That's like one of the craziest stories I've ever heard in my life.
Seriously.
And it remains a miracle. My daughters, and there's nothing that I love more in the world than them. And and they spent, I always say, the greatest sin of my addiction was my absence from my children. As you know, the one thing about my dad always taught me about is that being available is and during a time in their life when they loved their Uncle Bo. They loved their Uncle Bo as much as I loved them, and he was like a second father to them. And in his after Bo died, and then they lost me for a period of time, and there's enormous trauma in that. And my point about talking about the girls is that, like, I don't, like, my father, my family, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, my Aunt Valerie, my mom, they all tried to save me. I mean, I have the most incredible family in the world, but it took a stranger to see the love left in me. And I don't know why, but it to me, and I love to think of it this way, by the way, that it was a miracle, that there was something divine about it. And I'm a firm believer in that, in that faith, that sometimes the things that we cannot explain are God acting in our life in a way in which it might as well that it tried to get to us in every other way possible, and then finally they have to smack you over the head with a hammer.
I believe that so strongly. That is true. It's a fact.
Yeah, and for me, that is the truth about all of this, is that.
Yeah, but we're talking about a period of, I'm not exactly sure when this occurred between him and his now wife, or his wife. Maybe it was before then. Maybe it was in the middle of it. I don't know, but I will say this. It sounds like what happened between him and her, that was real, and it was an in the moment thing. It was something that happened. It was like in a vacuum, where it was just about them two in that room, not who they were, where they came from. That stuff does happen. It does. It happens.
I think that I've been given a gift, and the gift of my addiction that brought me to that point where it could totally break me. Not for me to go out and aggrandize myself in a way in which I tell a different story than what actually happened, but to tell the actual story. That's why I hate talking about the laptop or this or defending myself. But the story that I get to tell is that there is such a thing as redemption.
And that's actually when a couple people jumped on him after maybe like the first 15 minutes that I put on the interview. And I was thinking to myself, if Christianity means anything, if, we claim to be Christian people, if we claim to be in a Christian society, redemption has to mean something, and it has to be available to everyone. Everyone has to be able to to be redeemed. You know, everybody has to have the ability, or we have to offer that opportunity to everybody, or it's no good. And it's a total lie. And I don't think that's the case. I think, ask and, you shall receive, and the truth shall set you free. That stuff, that's really important, because if people don't think they can be redeemed, or they can have redemption, then they just keep doing what they're doing. They just keep destroying what they're destroying, or keep killing themselves. Like redemption, the whole idea, the abstract idea of it, it's really important. And it's kind of what our whole society, our whole civilization is based on. And, that's what makes us such good people. That's what makes our society such a good society. It's because we let people we let them make their mistakes, but we also let people fix them. And, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think a lot of a lot of the things that I'm proud of about Western society is that, like the redemption arc. Take it for what it's worth, I suppose.
And that's not the outward redemption. This is not like this is the inward, that you can find the person that is worthy of love in yourself. All of the things and all of the mistakes that I made in my life. And when I don't mean, all of the narrative that has been out there, but the mistakes that I've made in my life in terms of relationships, in terms of.
And I get what you're saying there, Viking, and that's your prerogative. I'm not trying to convince you of anything or anything like that, but I agree. I don't necessarily trust this guy at all, or Tucker. But, well, I don't even want to say but. I don't necessarily trust the guy, but at the same time, though, I don't think he's done those things, sure. But what does that have to do with me? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm looking at this more of like just an outsider looking in. But I've done a lot of bad stuff, and it made me who I am. And I don't have an ill thought or an ill feeling towards Hunter at all. I wish him well. I wish him the best. But I will say this, I didn't start out thinking very highly of him, but because all you saw of him was other people's thought of him, other people's lies or slander, or the truth, but what other people thought, how they perceived him. I perceive him as a pretty an obviously charismatic guy who's made a lot of mistakes and who is rather relatable and endearing. He's not the smartest guy I've ever seen. He's not really the best at anything, but there's something about him that's genuinely likable. Like, I would hang out with this guy. Bet your ass I would. Guarantee. I mean, the guy seems like he can carry on. He's good at conversation, but they're interesting. Every time I've seen this guy talking in these long form formats, he's interesting. He's got insight into life, into the world. And I think it's pretty valuable insight too. I really do. This guy has been up in tall strata. He's been the lowest of the low. He's been down in the gutter, the lowest strata of our society. And I'm willing to bet this guy, I mean, obviously he's got some pretty good stuff. He's seen a lot. This guy is well traveled, and you can learn something from him. Or you know what I'm saying? This guy has been through a lot. And I think he has a few nuggets of wisdom buried in there, here and there. And, good for him, man. I'm happy to see him doing a lot better.
Have all been based in fear. fear of not being enough, fear of not living up to some expectation, fear of being found out, fear of being embarrassed. I mean, everything from as something as trivial as like, fear of, asking the girl to dance.
Yeah.
And I drank over that and I used over that, or fear of, of having to come to terms with the trauma of losing my mother and my sister, or facing it in any way, or fear of being found out that that I'm not really as good as I think that I am, that I am that person that people, want to view as the privileged fail son that's never done anything with his life. And all of that fear is evaporated. I'm not without fear. I still, but in a very different way. And there's no way that I could have gotten here without having gone through that.
Emojis.
And that's the promise.
She's good with the emojis.
Of at least not picking up a drink or a drug today. Is that maybe I can get there. I was saying to somebody, I was talking before, I don't think that there's anything that has more guidance in my life than the Serenity Prayer. Is being able to really truly understand the things that you can change as compared to the things that you have no control over.
Yes.
And that's not about
seriously
feeling powerless.
That's that one line out of that thing, is knowing the things that I can change, or having it's the wisdom to know the things I can change, and like the strength or the courage to change them. That really is chef's kiss, truly. And there's a reason why that the Serenity Prayer is what addicts use, because it is consoling and comforting. Oh yeah,
but
certainly Sea Devil.
For instance, what it made me think of is what you just said.
Yeah, I know. I agree completely.
And you have
it's vanity to think that you can change certain. Like, you're in charge of the world now. You're God. Yeah. I mean, no, you're not.
Yeah. And there's that incredible, and I don't know if it's apocryphal or if it's true, that quote from Mother Teresa, in which she says, "If you want to change the world, go home and love your family."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in loving my family, what I also realize is my family.
Damn, that goes so hard. That was so poignant right there. Like, for real. And I think maybe he's got this quality of authenticity. I don't know what it is. The guy has he's very insightful, and that's something that people want to be around in itself. People want to be around wisdom. They want to be around insight. They want to learn something from you. If people believe you can teach them something, or they can learn something about their life in general, the human condition, that's what people value in other people. And he's got it.
Family is much larger than my my immediate
certainly
blood. And beyond just my first circle of friends. My family is a group of people that are still sick and suffering, that are literally to step out that door, that feel that there is no hope and no way out for them, and that they are caught in a cycle of degradation and demoralization and violence because of the drug or the alcohol, which is the worst, in my opinion, worst drug that there is. That they're addicted to it. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And
it is disarming. Yeah.
But it starts, in the immediate, and then hopefully it radiates out if it's done with sincerity and authenticity, and you're not living a double life, for whatever reason. You're not working on behalf of a corporate shill. You're not working on. I'm not pursuing a goal of which, I'm a consultant in Washington D.C. and I mean, like, what? It was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. What was I adding to the conversation? What was I adding to the to the discourse? What purpose was any of that at the time? I don't do that anymore, and that's why I'm an artist, and that's why I write, and that's why I'm speaking out, and that's why I work with an organization called Peak Path Health, which is a great rehab in LA, but I'm helping set up a foundation for them for aftercare. I work with an organization called Boston Universal, which does homeless prevention and tenants' rights advocacy in LA. And that's not to say, oh, I'm such a good guy. I mean, because I get paid, and I enjoy the work.
Man, it must be nice living up there in the socialite strata. You go down on hard times, they just set you up some fucking, God dang it, man, I've been trying not to cuss. They just set you up with some sweetheart foundation and you live luxury for the rest of your life. They all have a foundation, even him. I work with this one foundation. It must be nice, man. It must be nice. It's so easy, too. It seems so easy for them. Because, yeah, who's who of people trying to donate?
And I think that they're really good people. And I write a Substack because I hope to get paid. I hope people go read it so that I can make a living. You know, I was telling you before, I really believe in cryptocurrency. I really believe in those things. I want to do something in that space. And, you know, not because of any other thing than I believe in it, but you know what? I also want to make some money.
Yeah.
And that's my life now. I get to say that and say, but this is me. I'm not running for anything. Huh. You gave me a platform. I'm going to use it. And not only am I going to use it to benefit myself and my family, but hopefully benefit people along the way. And I would ask the same of you, which I think right now, and not, this is like, who am I to ask, is that I think that we have such an opportunity to find common ground, to do this a different way. You are, if not the most, in my estimation, the most talented communicator of your generation. And whatever anybody has to say about you is that there is no doubt is that you are a incredibly effective communicator, as is Candace, by the way.
Yes.
And I think that you have an opportunity to, and this isn't like, you know, train all, you know, ammunition on the administrator. I'm saying the opportunity to find that, you know, common purpose.
You wonder if it's in the
without the vanity of it, and I mean it.
Well, I strongly agree. I mean, we're here for a reason, and once you get out of debt, it's like, what's the point of accumulating money? I really feel that's
well, and that's exactly the way I feel. Just get me out of the debt. And that's the other thing. People don't like, oh, you're not, you like, I mean, millions of dollars that I, you know, law firms and others, and yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, you know about that.
Yeah.
But I wonder if like nothing you have said, you grew up in a very famous political family. I know you grew up in Delaware, but your world revolved around Washington. You went to school there, you lived there.
Went to college there, yeah.
Yeah, went to college there. You know the political system really well. You've said nothing about it, basically. You haven't suggested a political solution to any of this. I don't think that's an accident, because I think there probably isn't a immediate, I mean, you can make things better in the margins, but like the problems that people face are mostly not political problems. They're like, right. So I think that we overstate the importance of like voting for this or that guy. I mean, to me, that's the lesson of Trump. Like, I campaign.
This is where I started watching when it was on its premiere. It's right here.
For the guy. There are things about him I still like. I don't think he's like, you know, he's complicated. Like everybody is complicated, but it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't matter that you voted for him. You got the same thing that you were going to get if you voted for Kamala Harris. Like that's my perspective on it.
Yeah.
And so what does that tell you? It tells you that you're putting your faith in the wrong thing, which is in a political system, whereas there's got to be a real solution that begins with changing people's hearts. That's what I think.
Exactly. Because it comes from us. We're trying to find the problem out there.
Exactly.
And it's here.
Yeah, we're the problem.
Yes.
Right. No, I've discovered that about myself.
And so all the people out there that have such a problem with me sitting down with you or sitting down with Candace and like I'm not hard enough on you. You got to apologize for this and you got to do this. It's like, you know what? F them.
You know, and there's something I've sort of started to notice about politics or the punditry and stuff, the political punditry, is there are the ones, the synergists. There are the people that talk for a living that bring other people together. And then there are these people, they're like bridge trolls, but they're trolls nonetheless. And all they do is to seek to keep people isolated from each other. And they bash anybody who brings other people together. That's their thing. Which is like Ben Shapiro. And I've started to see it that way. And it's like people, they just hate on anybody who synergizes, who tries to, sit across a table from other people, like civilized humans, and just kind of talk it out. And then you have Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, and all they do is seek to scare people, divide people, try and keep people sort of, they try to like hoard their audience, try to keep their audience stuck in the dark. And it's really creepy. And I started to get that feeling lately, like these people are evil, man. They feel like their audience is like a herd of sheep that they have captive, and that, it's like their job is to keep them scared and locked into only listening to them. I don't know. It's weird.
Here's my point. It starts with us. Like, I'm not going to ever change, Chuck. I can get into the whole debate about the Democratic Party and whether you're not going to label something a Democratic Socialist. This, you know what I think? I like people who believe in what they have a conviction.
Yeah,
and they and they're honest about it.
I totally agree.
I don't agree with everything that Zoran Hamdani does, but you know what? He has conviction, he has competence, and he balanced the budget. Crime is at a record low in New York right now, and regardless of what you think about him, is that so from a political perspective, I don't care if it's Zoran Hamdani or Thomas Massie. And I don't agree with 90% of the stuff I think I don't, but I don't think that matters in this moment in time. I don't think any of those labels matter in time. I want someone with the courage of their conviction, principles, that is, but it all starts here. All starts here. And everybody else can nitpick around whether, all of the labels that we apply to each other and all of the vitriol. And there has to be, I think there needs to be, accountability for the people that are literally robbing us effing blind. And I think there will be accountability for that. I think but my point is in this moment, can we not all see that we are about to reach a point in the evolution of humanity that is will be a larger step than in the entirety of the existence of this earth.
That's right. He's right there. I was thinking
so what does all of it matter? If you have people that drive me crazy like Elon Musk, and every other person that has a hand in, which is a handful of them, in what's happening with AI right now, telling us in easily within the next 5 years, if they haven't already done it, that we're going to reach AGI. And if we reach AGI, then we're not more than a maximum of another 5 years, more likely 2 or 3 away from superintelligence. And once that happens, we literally have taken a step in the evolution of humanity and of humankind. And the largest singular step that will ever be taken in the exponential way in which things will advance from there is completely outside of our control. And the only thing that we can hope for is that we have leaders that have humanity's best interest in mind. And I don't know if I shouldn't say I don't know. I do know. I think we have the exact wrong leadership at the moment.
Totally agree. I vehemently. Do you know anybody in your life who you talk to who's very excited about AI? Because I don't really know anyone who's really for this. Where's the constituency for this? It seems like the population doesn't want it at all.
Yeah, well, I don't know why anyone would want want it in the way that it's being offered to us. Look, the thing I say is this: it's not theirs. What they're building is off the back of the output of all of humanity.
I agree.
He has a point there. These LLMs and stuff, they're trained on our input. And matter of fact, they don't work unless they have our input. These LLMs, they are useless unless they're updated constantly. I think I seen something that was saying, even if they're just a few days old, that they're only updated to 5 days ago, they suck because they don't know the news, they don't know anything. It takes constant, a constant input from everybody on the internet and it has to be up to this minute, pretty much. So it's like a product of all of us participating in the internet together. And I don't really think that, I mean, really, they're standing on the shoulders of giants, just like Jurassic Park, standing on the shoulders of giants. And they're gonna be made into trillionaires over that. Like that's like, why should Sam Altman why should he get to reap all the benefits here? It's I don't know. I think Hunter has a point here that if they, I mean, I don't, because the idea is they're going to tweak this and figure this out, and then they're going to rule over mankind for all of eternity after. I don't think so. I think that's a bunch of crap.
It's ours. It belongs to me. It belongs to me just as much as it belongs to a Sam Bushman in the Kalahari.
Sam Bushman in the Kalahari. I laughed my ass off about that earlier when he said that. He's talking about the little Bushman from the The Gods Must Be Crazy. The little teeny Bushman that talked with clicks and you know, tongue clacks and shit. It was weird. But I don't know why, but that really had me laughing, referring to the Kalahari.
Belongs to us. From the moment that there was a cave painting that was put into a digital database, and in a context to the poetry of Shakespeare, to the book that you wrote, to to my last podcast tape transcript. That is what is AI. It's all of ours. Every scientific
it really is just the sum of human knowledge, sort of turned into a quick access algorithm. They fed all the information of humanity into them, and then when it allows you to query the human condition or human history, and they're gonna they're just going to inherit the earth over this, really, over the sum total of our knowledge. I don't know. I don't think. I mean, we still have a long way to go yet, but the way things are shaping up, it's. I think it'll turn out good though.
Discovery, every single public dollar, all of it we own it, and we somehow are going to make like 5 or 6 individuals in this country trillionaires by allowing them to literally rob us of that and make it theirs, and them decide. Like, do you trust Sam Altman to be to decide the fate of humanity, or any of them for that matter?
I've done thousands of interviews over 35 years, and I've never had the feeling of wanting to run out of a room more strongly than I had when I talked to Sam Altman. So
dude, Sam Altman is a creep. He's a creep, man. Where Elon is kind of like a kind of funny, endearing autistic. That dude Sam Altman is like arch supervillain autistic. Not cool. Not good guy at all.
He's out of 350 million Americans, he's probably 350 millionth of who I'd trust.
Yet
to control the future of humanity.
Yet here we are. Right?
Yeah.
Yet here we are. And you know what we're doing? Is I'm supposed to hate Tucker Carlson because he's an anti-Semite and he's this. I know you're not an anti-Semite. I 100% know you're not an anti-Semite.
No.
Yeah. No, that's what my point being is that. No,
I would just say so.
My point being is that, like, if it's anti-Semitic to point out that Bibi Netanyahu is evil incarnate, then you know what? I don't know what to say to people anymore. I mean, all you have to do is just open your eyes. Just literally open your eyes. Open your heart for 1 minute.
Yeah.
And realize,
it's such an obvious lie. It's like, who's even intimidated by that anymore?
My point is like, how is it possible that they're dividing us on things like that?
I agree.
And I can tell you how it's possible. It's the distraction that is being created by a handful of individuals and the people that work for them to keep us divided through our algorithm. And as much as you're not addicted to your phone because you're not on social media and things like that, the vast, vast, vast majority of us are, myself included, is everyone has a pocket full of heroin, and they access it literally 1,000 times a day.
So you're saying you got off crack and, more impressively, alcohol.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not that bad. All I'm saying
not
is
off your phone.
No, I am. I'm very. I'm not nearly. I'm very wary of it. I'm very wary of anything like that. But what I'm trying to say to people is that I'm no better than anybody else.
Yeah.
I look at my phone just as much as anybody else. I don't feel that it is necessarily a problem. But what I do find is, like, for instance,
good to see it, Mackenzie. Night.
Is that you gravitate towards the negative things people say about you.
Yes.
Way more than you ever gravitate to the beautiful things that people say about me.
That is so true.
So I'm on X.
Yeah, that's true.
And the amazing thing is that I go on X and I start talking about addiction, but I also start talking about, the absurdity of the moment that we live in and some of the players that are that are outsized characters in this morality tale we're living through. And there's these beautiful messages from people about their own struggle and their own addiction. And my sister, I showed my sister what you wrote about X, Y, or Z. And, she said it gave her the strength to make it through one more day. And these beautiful things where people would say, hey, I'm a 3-time Trump voter, but I just want to say, keep on keeping on, brother. Like, I love you for your recovery. It gives me hope. And there's thousands of those messages. But you know what happens is that, the one that catches your eye, the one that says, you shut up, you crackhead pedophile, you're, criminal and you stole from, it's like, and it was a great lesson for me in the experience that everyone is having, not just on X, but across the board, in which we're all being, and it's purposeful. The thing that I never fully believed until I read this whistleblower is how intentional it is. And as long as we're looking at each other, as long as we're trying to find all of the things that are wrong with our life in the other, and by the way, whether it's the other that's the immigrant or whether it's the other that's our neighbor, is we're not looking at ourselves and we're not focused on the things that really matter. And one of the things that really matters is we better wake up to the way in which we're being led by the nose, and have to believe that we all hate each other.
And it's making us worse. I mean, there's this, one of my favorite scenes in the Gospel of Luke is, that the parable of Jesus, the story that Jesus tells about the two men who go to pray at the temple. Mm-hmm. And one's the Pharisee and one's the tax collector. And the Pharisee looks over and says, God, thank you for not making me that guy, because he is a pig. He's a sinner, unlike, a righteous, good person like me. And the tax collector, who knows he's a sinner because he's a thief and he knows he's a thief and everyone knows he's a thief, doesn't even look up. He can't even look at God, and he just says, have mercy on me. Yeah. And Jesus says, who is justified before God? It's not the man who turns to the guy next to him and says, I'm better than you. It's the man who knows that he's not better than anybody. That's the man who's justified before God. And I just feel like all of life is that story. When you stop looking at other people and being like, you suck.
Yeah.
And look inside and realize that I suck. That's where wisdom and peace come from.
Yeah. There's a scene in the Gnostic Gospels, and I forget which is the Acts of Acts of Philip or something. Anyway, have you ever read the Gnostic Gospels? And really, you got to. They're the whole trove of Gospels. I mean, a lot of people would say that it's heresy, but it's Emperor. When Constantine unified the church and declared Catholicism the Christianity the
state religion of Rome.
They basically effectively chose 4 gospels and banned all the other ones. And they found in Hominy, these 2,000-year-old texts, which were the other gospels written by Mary Magdalene and written by Philip and written by and anyway, there's part of one is this. It says Jesus is speaking to the disciples, and this is before, and he says, learn to suffer as I do. And that is everything. That all wisdom comes through suffering.
That is true.
And in that suffering, you're able to love. In that suffering, you're able to see the other. It's the exactly what that you were saying in Luke.
Yeah,
is being able to, like, not being the person casting judgment. Rather, and by the way, it doesn't mean that you are without discretion. simply means is that as much as I'm not going to, in what is the idea of like my empathy overwhelms my critical thinking.
Yes.
Is not that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, however, is if I can feel this strongly about what they're doing to kids in detention centers in the United States of America, I can also feel just as strongly about or have as much empathy for someone who feels like they have been completely left out and without any options, that are living in Bethel, Maine, that feels that that this country has completely let them down, and is looking for a hope, something, an object for their anger. And I want to bring them into the fold. I want to be able to talk to them. Those people that I think voted out of anger and that are still looking for, someone to be their retribution.
For people who are dependent on alcohol, which is a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're absolutely right to say it's the scariest of all drugs because it's the most insidious. It's just ubiquitous everywhere. How do you get off it exactly? You said you got off crack in 3 days or something like that, pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is that
how do you get off alcohol?
Yeah. Alcohol is the and I mean this in this sense, and I have people push back on me, but I alcohol is the most destructive drug that there is. Not just by virtue of the fact that it is as ubiquitous as it is. It is, and physiologically impacts your body. It impacts every organ, every major organ, and in particular, every major pleasure center of your brain. It's the only drug other than benzodiazepines that you can die from withdrawal from. So
Yes.
everybody always, does the Hollywood version of, how horrible it is to come off of opiates, or cocaine. And the reality is it's really painful and it's uncomfortable and you think you are going to die, but particularly as it relates to cocaine, it's out of your system in 72 hours. There is no more physiological need for it, and you won't die from withdrawing from it. Alcohol, you'll die. You'll go into seizures. Yeah. And it stays in your body, not just for 3 days, it stays in your body for at least 30, if not more. And you've created these, neurotransmitters in your brain that your brain is still crying, 30, 60, 90 days later, still crying for you to drink. And the worst part is, all you got to do is walk out your door. And usually it's not more than, particularly if you live in a urban environment, a quarter of a mile from wherever you
And no one looks at you funny when you have a cocktail.
No, exactly. And it's encouraged. And so for me, it was hard work. Is that I've been to a number of rehabs, and in 2019, after I met Melissa, and she said this ends, is that I tapered. She had me taper.
How did she know to do that?
God, it was completely intuitive. And it was really, really, incredible. And she tapered me. And then at one point it got really bad. And I had true delirium tremens, and she called a doctor to come over.
What's that like?
Literally the feeling that if you don't remove yourself from your own body, that you're going to die, because you are, there's the real potential of you dying from seizures. And it's the most excruciating feeling that I've ever had of any kind of pain. And I'd gone through it before, but I had done it in a clinical environment in which they just, usually use benzodiazepines to wean you that way. And so I had weaned enough, but not enough to stop that. And so I had to go through it.
Where were you?
Melissa had rented a house, this little house for us in the, up in the hills. Hard to get to from anywhere. Like I couldn't walk. She took my keys. She took my wallet. She took my phone. She erased every number from it. She, that didn't have the name Biden in it. She, she had to do the hardest thing that for anyone that is, that loves someone, is for a period of time, she had to be my jailer and my nurse and literally, nurse me back to life. And it is, it was It's incredibly intense at the beginning, 24/7 that you have to be there, because you literally could, particularly with alcohol, not particularly, singularly with alcohol, you could die.
How long did it take you to feel better?
In that instance, 10 days before I could ever really eat anything and taste it.
Actually.
Yeah. I mean, or have any interest in not being forced to eat something. And then you start to, you have this kind of, everything is kind of grayscale, for even after you get a little bit of a boost around 30 days, and then you try to ride that as long as possible. But what happens in your brain is that somebody explained it to me this way: is that you have these little messengers that alcohol sends to your pleasure centers of your brain, and so the messengers, imagine them as little birds. In a normal person, a bird flies up to the birdhouse, and that's your dopamine or whatever it is. And like a normal, in a normal circumstance, like you have a happy experience,
400
and
milligrams.
sends two birds up, and to live in the birdhouse. And the maximum that you're supposed to ever have is like 10. It's like the happiest. What alcohol does is it sends 20 birds at a time. And so it creates 20 birdhouses. And then the next time you got to get to 30 birdhouses. And then it builds 40 birdhouses. Then you have, then there's 1,000 birdhouses. And when you take the alcohol away and you have a normal, happy experience, like a cup of coffee in the morning, it only sends 2 birds. And your brain says, there are 998 other birdhouses that you have to feel for me to feel normal. And you don't have it. And there's nothing in a normal experience that can possibly produce that except the drug. And so your brain, the thing that you think that everyone, of course, has to believe is providing you with rational, logical information, is saying, if you don't get this, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And in the case of alcohol, it means it.
Yeah.
If you don't get this, you're going to die. And by the way, not only are you going to die, you're going to feel like this for the rest of your life. So fix me. And so your brain's telling you. And so the first time that you face a trauma or an obstacle or something good happens, your brain says, I know how to make it better. I know how to fix it. I know how to make you not feel this way. I know how to make you not have this anxiety. I know how to make you not have this fear. We've done it before. Do it. And that's, that is what alcohol at least did as it relates to me, but also I'm positive the science of it is, anyways, to me, the most dangerous thing.
I've lived it. And that's an amazing description and an accurate one, I think. How do you stay sober for 7 years?
Almost everything that I do is no longer with the idea that I am.
Bro, those bangs. Oh man, I used to drink them when I was doing tree work, and one day I chugged 2 of those things before I got into a tree. And it was about an hour before I got into a tree. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. Like I think I sat at lunch and calmed down, but like I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. My shit was just beating out of my chest. It was, I think there's like 250 grams in each bang. It was not smart. And that I drink energy drinks, or when I used to work doing tree work, I'd drink them for a couple weeks and then stop. I'll do them for a little while, then stop for an equal amount of time. And I like that because it's nice when you don't have caffeine for a while and then you have a cup of coffee. It's like it's like a supercharger. It's incredible. And I like that. I like having that ace in my pocket.
Like living on a knife's edge. In the early days, though, you really do have to really protect yourself, not put yourself in positions of, people always say to me like, well, can I still go to the bar with my friends? Well, no. Getting clean and sober is really easy. All you have to do is change everything.
Yeah.
And that everything, and what I really mean by that is that don't go back and put yourself in the same exact circumstances that you were in, where your same group of friends, if they are heavy drinkers, or your family. Like if you can't go to Thanksgiving without everybody getting drunk, maybe don't go to Thanksgiving this year trying to get sober. And so that in terms of changing everything. But staying, I promise you, everybody, it gets not only easier, but there's this thing in the program that I practice in which they call the promises, in which you will know and experience an ease.
You never heard
by
of a
which,
bang before? Question? Are you kidding me? Oh yeah. I did. I definitely did the tree climber thing. My cousin still does it. He's an amazing climber. Does all the tricks, and he's on TikTok and stuff. But yeah, those bangs. You've never seen those, dude? They have really weird names. Isn't there one that's like unicorn farts or unicorn and pixie dust or something? They have kind of crazy flavors, but they're not bad. They're caffeinated, but I think they have zero sugar. Kind of, anything that has taurine, caffeine, and zero sugar, bro, it's going to wear your ass. It's going to wear you out like a cheap fiddle, man.
life happens, as you are able to live life on life's terms.
Espresso
in which,
martini.
like everything, it doesn't fix everything. Look at me. 6 felony charges and 2 trials later, and it didn't solve anything. It didn't solve all the consequences I had to face. But you know what? Can you imagine what my life would be like? I'd be dead. I'm 100% long dead. If I had decided the only way to be able to fix this is to anesthetize myself. I mean, I would be long dead. And that's what they were hoping. And I truly, truly do believe that. I believe that they knew that the singular, what they perceived as my father's Achilles heel, was his family. That regardless of what anybody says about Joe Biden, that there was nothing more important to him than his family, and that he had just lost Bo, and that the idea that I truly believe that they wanted me to relapse, which was equivalent to death. I'm positive they did.
What does that tell you about? I mean, one thing I noticed just living in Georgetown as a kid and knowing, a million people from political families is the families were all dealing with tragedies that on a bigger scale than normal people. Like there's something about that environment that is really hard on families, and you see it in the most famous political families. They're all a lot of casualties.
I don't know. See, that's one of the things that well, number one is I really truly didn't grow up in DC.
Right.
And we really were in Delaware, and which was different. But to your point is that what I found is that I lived it publicly. But Tucker, what I found is that I was in I forget where I was, and a stranger, somebody's driving me, and he told me a story. It told me about their life and their addiction, and that their brother was in jail, and their father, just got arrested, and addicts. And I think everybody has those stories. Everybody.
That's for sure.
Except mine played out on the front page of the New York Post in a way that literally I don't think it had for anybody, any political family ever. I mean, even the Kennedys, to the degree in which they, and I really mean that. Like, the total evisceration of anything, or even the notion that I deserved any privacy. I mean, I really, I look at some people and I say, just put yourself in my shoes for 1 minute. On what level? On what level is it do you think that was right? I look like somebody like Miranda Devine, and just on what level if that was Ivanka, and I'm not talking about and just take her existing 20-year digital footprint, everything that she's ever done. It's like, I guarantee you, and I don't know. I guarantee you, everybody has a nude. Everybody has a picture that they don't want to see. Everybody has a text message out of context. Everybody has a voicemail they wish that they hadn't left. Everybody has an email in which it doesn't have the entirety of the email chain. Like, how many conspiracy theories were born out of the fact that I wrote Buckley a recommendation to a school, which you reminded me he didn't get into. You know what I mean? Like out of context, you are able to do something. And how is that in any way fair? However, that's what happened. And
what'd your wife think? I mean, I just was thinking about
she talk about,
she didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, talk about yeah, she is so tough. She's she is a warrior. She's amazing. She is absolutely amazing. I mean, look, I mean, there's no way that I could even prepare for it. And this has been my life. None that I could prepare for it. The fact she didn't run says everything that you need to know about her, because there wasn't much other upside. Well, the truth is that Bowie's the ultimate upside. But she is one amazing person.
What's your plan? You're on a path.
Yeah.
It seems like you kind of moved into it sideways, maybe not with a plan. I don't know.
No,
but you're clearly moving in some direction. Where is that headed?
I don't know. And that's one of the things, is that I know the things that I care about. I care about reaching people that are still sick and suffering. I really do. Because, by the way, not because I'm a hero, not because I'm some saint and you know why? Because it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. It gives me sustenance. It makes me feel good about myself. I mean it. Like, it makes it easier for me to make it through the day.
This is true. This is what AA, the whole point of AA, the whole point of NA is all about: setting up relationships between people where other people rely on other people. Because when somebody relies on you, it forces you to think about other people, and when I was going to seeing how AA worked and stuff, when I was going to it, that was one thing that I noticed I think it was really the crux and the value of AA and NA, is that you would go get a sponsor, and then they would you'd have them to rely on and answer your phone calls and stuff. That keeps them sober, helping you stay sober. And then when you kind of get the hang of it, they give you somebody to sponsor so that they can call you anytime and you'll pick up. But there's something about helping other people that gets people out of a rut, or that gets them, through times. It really means a lot, because I do think that's why AA works, is because it gets guys to start thinking, men and women, gets them to start thinking about somebody else besides themselves. Because when you're an addict and stuff, that's literally the only person you ever think about, ever. And I don't know, it's just something about it gets you out of your own selfish head, concerned with your own selfish wants.
And so it's purely selfish. And that's one of the things about sobriety that I tell everybody, is that the ultimate goal is to get to the end, and particularly as it relates to the program that I practice, as you get to the end of the steps. And the whole thing is so that you can be of service to somebody else. And not because you are sainted at the end and all of a sudden you're St. Francis walking among the forest. It's because it's the thing that saves you.
Yeah.
The only way to truly get out of yourself is to do for somebody else. Is to sit here and for me, the easiest is to find other people that have had, same similar experience. And it's not like you have to look far.
No.
I mean, it's around every single corner there's somebody. And that's what's the beautiful discovery that I had. So there's that. I want to reach 1 million people in recovery. And I've created this thing at hunterbiden.com /recovery, in which anonymously, for nothing other than to create a storyboard, a StoryCorps, is people get to share their experience, strength, and hope. Because what helped save me was realizing I wasn't alone. And I want to write about it, and I'm going to put it on Substack, and part of it's free and part of it's subscription. And I want to continue to practice my art. And ultimately, at the end of the day, is that, like anybody else, is that, I want to have the financial security to be able to, to not constantly feel as that I have to make, choices that I don't want to have to make, like anybody else in their life.
How close are you to financial security?
I'm 1 million miles away. I'm several million miles away. I am. But, my, Winston Strawn wants their money.
Lawyers.
it's all legal bills. Yeah. And anyway,
I guess
like
the
tens of
pardon
thousands of
didn't
dollars.
pardon him
millions
from the
dollars.
bills,
Millions
the
dollars.
legal
millions.
bills.
I mean, just the
That sucks.
I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's between $4 and $6 million that Winston Strawn says that I owe them for my a couple of convictions. And anyway, yeah, it's a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
How does that affect you?
I don't know. I would hope that they. How does it
They
affect
know
me?
he's good for it.
It affects me in this way: is that I have to find a sensible solution and a way through. I really am. Have wanted to avoid bankruptcy because the road back from that is just so long, and I'm 56 years old. But I don't allow it to consume me. You know what I mean? I really don't. And I can't. It is. I don't want it to be the principal motivating factor for everything I do, because the truth of the matter is the mountain's it's such a long climb that I don't see the solution to it right now. But one will present itself, and I think cooler heads will prevail, and I'll be able to. I just have faith. I don't know, man. I just have faith, and not blind.
I get it. Once you've been through enough of life, once you're not a young pup anymore, sniveling young pup, after you've been through enough life, you understand that things have a way of working out. They just do. You have a community, a network of people, and things, many a time in my life where, I worried, how am I going to get the money? How am I going to pay this? How am I going to live up to a standard? How am I going to fulfill an obligation? And I don't know how many times it just came together, and so many times and once you get to a certain age, you understand that. And it's comforting. Once you get to a certain age, the fact that you've weathered and endured all these things, you're not a new hand at anything. You've been on a knife's edge like this before. And, it's not something that, and I remember I used to be jealous of my parents because they just seemed iron nerved. But it's just something that comes with age. You kind of get a feel for the way life is, for the things that you really need to worry about, and the stuff that doesn't do you any good to worry about.
Faith, just work hard. Shit.
Right, that's all you
I'm
can
really
do.
Working my ass off. Everybody says, "Oh, go get a job." I have 2 jobs. I have 2 jobs, and then on top of that, I have all of this that I'm trying to do. And then I'm, a whole thing that I'm trying to build as it relates in that I'm working my butt off.
See, that's when him being shot out shines through. He just kind of gets hung up at a word junction there, gets caught at an intersection and can't quite get through. And it happens to me too, not as much as him, but it's not because I'm shot out. It's just because life, I guess.
And doing that, they took away my law license, which means that avenue that I spent,
honestly, I don't
25.
I don't think opiates shoot anybody out. I think crack, cocaine, benzos, alcohol, that stuff is really hard on your brain and your body. When I think of somebody being shot out, it's those drugs that fry your brain. Opiates, they don't actually do that. They don't kill brain cells like other drugs.
There's working towards to graduate from Yale Law School is not open to me right now. And so I have to, in many ways, reinvent myself, but not out of whole cloth. I've been spending the past 7 years, I'm really, really dedicated to my art. I'm really dedicated to the work of writing. You're a brilliant writer, and you know this better than anybody. It is a practice as much as an art. It's a discipline as much as
absolutely right.
And
it's true.
And so I've been practicing that discipline since I wrote my first book.
There's something about art where it's like you have to keep your hand in. You have to stick with it. If you put it down, you'll lose. Like if I don't stream for a week, oh God, it's like so difficult to get back in the swing. There's something about it. And writing is the same way. If you, as long as you write a little bit every day or a little bit on a routine, you're okay. But if you just stop doing anything like that, anything artistic, you lose it.
And so I have a lot to say, and there's ways to be able to do that now, and ways to be able to do that can, that, like, I think it's really important for me to be authentic about everything. There are also the ways in which I can do it, in which I hopefully can put food on the table.
Last question is about faith. How has this affected how you feel about God and changed your relationship?
I don't know whether I would say that it's changed, but it is deep in my in belief in whether you want to call it, I do, as God, is the absolute certainty of this. There is literally, in both the theological but also metaphysical sense, no distance between me and you or anyone. We are all literally connected. And that connection, that universal connection to everything, is what I refer to as God. Is us realizing that all of our fear is a delusion, is being separated. It's all the idea. And so my faith is in the fact that I know that that there is not a that there's not a sentient being that is not that literally is me. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I truly believe that there has been a real thing in my life that has saved me time and time and time again, and that has taught me hard lessons, and that I believe that I cannot explain by other than what I choose to call God.
No question about that. And we do get glimpses of
Crazy. I've been through the exact same thing, like a good 10 times. A good 10 times I had brushes with death and just somehow walked away. Or stuff that I really couldn't even explain, but, or you wouldn't believe me if I told you. That stuff does happen. It really does. And it's I'm grateful for those things. Anyway.
Between people, all people.
Glad they happen.
I think that's what we refer to as a transcendent moment, when we rise above all the things we're concerned with and sort of look down just for a split second. But this happens to people throughout life, and you're like, oh, wait a second.
Yep.
Yeah.
People are really connected to each other in a real way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you start to get honest with yourself, like really, really get honest with yourself. And I'm not talking about everybody has to go through what I went through to be able to get honest with themselves. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
I don't know, man.
I think that there are
what
spiritual practices.
What does one have to do to go to hell? Honestly. What did Hunter do that he's going to hell for? I'd love to hear it. Because, we've all done our dirt, and we all think that, oh, that's not going to keep me out. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hell for that. Honestly, is it okay to kill somebody? Where somebody lived their whole life and then they met you and that was it. They never they never even breathed after they met you, or what is it? Where's the line? Where does it get drawn?
That I did not either have the courage or the patience.
I don't presume to
endure. I'd say it's not like I was moving to Rishikesh to sit in a cave and meditate for 7 years. Instead, what I got is a trial by fire. and
Damn,
like
can
I
relate
said,
with
the
Big
complete
time.
eradication of an ego, not by courage or conviction on my part, but by necessary choice to survive. I had to choose to either stay in bed or get out and live. And if I was going to live, I had to let go of that.
Yes.
And I did. And for now, today, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It doesn't solve everything. It doesn't solve my debt. It doesn't solve my, I still got to,
it could be worse.
Put on my pants like everybody else, and I still have, to deal with a relationship that.
Well, basically, what he's saying here is he's right with himself and his past and God. That doesn't mean to say that all his problems are solved, but he's right with God. He's not concerned. I mean, he's not like, beating himself up. Like, he's in a content place in his life. He's content with himself, with his life, with his station in life. And everything else is just, all you can do is, go to work every day or whatever, or do your best and, pay your debts, I guess. But I get what he's saying. He's he sounds like he's pretty at peace, honestly.
I like
good for
anybody
him.
else in a family that I love, drives me crazy. I love it's like everybody else. But I don't have to live a lie.
Bro.
100
Fuck, that's the end of that's the end. Bro.
Thank you very much.
Damn, that went so good. That was a really good ending there where he says, I don't have to live a lie, and I don't. Whatever he said, but that was a good job at editing there. They hit that one right on the head. I believe I believe Hunter. I'm sure, I've been through, a lot like him. I can relate to a lot of that. So it's easy for me to believe, that stuff. But like somebody said, he's like purposely staying away from politics for whatever reason. And he's doing like a goodwill tour for, just it looks like he's trying to just kind of reintroduce himself to everything, to the public or whatever. I mean, that seems like what he's trying to do. And good for him. That's the way I see it. Good for him. I mean, I don't wish ill for people. And there was something he said in there too, where he said, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, when he was talking about his addiction and all that stuff. Man, I said the exact same thing. Those were legitimately my exact sentiments. I was like, once I got through it, I was like, dude, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It was like hell. It was hell on earth. It really was. And just, hearing him say that, I'm like, well, I know exactly what he's talking about, It's not fun. It's not fun, man. And like he said, you get to a point where, because what drugs do is they flood your nervous system with endorphins and stuff. And when you flood your brain with drugs like that over and over and over, your body gets used to it. So the little spurt of endorphins your body releases throughout normal life for normal people, it's as if it's such a negligible amount, you may as well not produce any at all, because you're used to, floodgates worth of these chemicals. So, and I get that it is rough, and Hunter Biden, I would say he's probably a product of his environment too, because somebody like him, if his parents were regular people, he would have just been a street urchin. He would have just been stealing from from Walmarts and stuff. You know, he traveled in big company, fast company. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff he was doing. You know, that's the kind of stuff he was around. You know, hey, if I could have been a bag man and kept myself flush, I would have. Certainly. Cold turkey, yeah, it's no joke. Not fun. I've done it a couple times. It is what it is. You know. You gotta want to be. You gotta want to be finished with it. Until then, there's nothing that's gonna stop you. But you know, like I was talking about this pretty early on in the stream, because I was watching Othello over the weekend, and you know, it didn't occur to me the other time. I knew that because the half the story takes place in Cyprus, and even back then, Cyprus was inhabited by a lot of Ottoman, or not Ottoman, but a lot of Muslims. And in Othello, there are, like, I didn't even notice it other times I watched it, but there are scenes where there are Muslims involved in the scenes. Like there's a scene where they're all carousing with Muslim women. And then, you know, they're getting drunk and making out, like, and playing music and drink and kissing in the street with Muslim women right out in front of their of Othello's house, their general. And some Muslims walk by and kind of say something under their breath to the Muslim women, like, "You filthy such and such," because they're like drunk, you know, they with the Christian men kind of just letting it all hang out. These men say some slick stuff to them, and these women, they jump up and the Christian men like grab them and, like, you know, keep them from attacking these guys. And then, you know, the Christian guys are kind of hanging on to these women. But it was so weird because it never occurred to me, but that it was making commentary on the two civilizations clashing even back then. Because, like I said this earlier, like, they don't drink. So, and, you know, and they kind of looked down upon that, you know. It wasn't even something they shot at the English or the Europeans. It was just something they said to the women passing by. But they were all wearing those muumuus, the tall thing that goes all the way down to the shirt that goes all the way down to their ankles. But like half of the characters in that there have like turbans on and whatnot. Yeah, and it's like kind of like, what's weird is Othello was a Christian. Othello was a more Christian who sided with the white Europeans against the Ottomites, the Ottoman Turks, and the North African Moors, that actually sided with the Europeans and was one of their best warriors, who they gave the generalship of, like, Cyprus, like the island. And you know, the story is so good. It really is. And just those little aspects with the Muslims in them, I noticed a couple of scenes before where, like, these Muslims were almost like furniture or like buildings in the city. You know, they would just be like, they're literally purposefully slumping like snakes almost. Their heads are low and they hold up like lanterns and stuff. It's really weird. And they, you know, they have paint on their face and stuff. But the story is just really good, man. And how, yeah, it's basically following along 2 or 3 guys that are Europeans with one black or a Moorish general. And it's just sort of how that all takes place. And then, well, he ends up killing his wife and committing suicide. But, you know, and like I was saying before, I kind of realized something about, you know, reputation. You know, it's like an abstract term, but really it's not abstract. we all know what it's like when you lose reputation or when you do something that people are going to remember you by. It's like a anxiety, like it's really not a good feeling. It's almost like despair. But when I was watching it last night, there's a scene where one of the officers gets drunk and he makes an ass of himself and stabs another guy, another soldier. And then the general comes down and then they tell him what happened and he basically fires the guy. And the guy just kind of freaks out because, my reputation, the immortal part of myself. And I don't know what it was, man, but I know what reputation is, but it was like right then I kind of associated the feeling with reputation and what it's like to lose it, more or less. And like those stories are just so valuable. And they say something about human nature, most certainly, like, because the whole story is about a guy who feels slighted by Othello. Othello is like a general. He's been through a lot of battles. And when they promote him to general, I think it's in Venice, the nobleman, the Duke of Venice, names him their general, and he gets to pick his lieutenant and his ship's ensign, his two officers. And the ensign feels slighted by this black guy. He's a Moor, African. He feels slighted by it, like, because the guy he made his officer is like kind of a good-looking white guy who's young and sort of a dandy. And the other guy that's the ensign, and he feels slighted. He's more of a manly type. Well, he feels slighted by it, and then he decides that he's going to he has designs on Othello. And then he weaves trickery and deceives everybody. His name's Iago, who they named that bird after in Aladdin. But the whole story is about this guy, Iago, basically driving Othello mad by, whispering in his ear and stuff. He kind of tricks Othello into thinking his officer is sleeping with his wife behind his back. And Othello ends up, going crazy basically over this. Everybody ends up dying basically at the end too. I think only a couple people survive. Everybody else, they all end up stabbing each other with swords by the end of but it's a great story. They're all great stories. Every one of them that I've watched, they have become regular treasures. Like, because I watch a lot of movies. I watch movies every day usually, and those ones. And every time I watch those movies, I walk away with seeing something about something. I'll notice something different. Like last night, I don't know what it was, but I was like really locked in. And I just noticed all kinds of things, how first of all, the story is a commentary on, Western civilization and our way of life, the way that we party, the way that we fight, the way that we think, and that's really what that story was about. Because a lot of the story is shaped around like racism, basically. Because the guy marries a white woman, Desdemona, and her father is like, he disowns her because of it. He totally disowns her because the guy, he's black. He's a Barbary horse, and even though the only reason why she fell in love with Othello was because her dad was inviting him over to have coffee with and stuff. And I guess when he wasn't looking, Othello, she would ask him about his life and he would tell her about the battles, the trials and tribulations. And she fell in love. Like, and how he put it was, she said, if you had a best friend or a great friend and you wanted, and he wanted you to help him fall in love with me, just have him tell your story. And that's when he realized how much she liked him. But Yeah, it's just such a great timeless story, you know, and like you just they don't make media like that today. Like every time I watch stuff like that, like I watched Don Giovanni too. It's also crazy, like really good. But like those kind of stories, they reveal something about humanity. Like if you're watching, if you're paying attention, you'll notice things, you know, and you'll find answers to questions you've had in your life. But you won't ever get those things out of modern media. You might get it out of long form podcasts, but not out of Hollywood. Not anymore. Not out of a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's just every Hamlet, all of the ones that Laurence Olivier did, they were just amazing. They're such good stories. And they use different language. Like, you know how we say inside out? They say right side out or wrong side outwards. Wrong side outward. Yeah. Like I noticed I was watching it last night and I heard him say wrong side outward. And I'm like, is that inside out? But like backward? It's just funny how it's very similar to how like inside out, but wrong side outward, you know? And that's the way he used it too. You know, I'll drive this guy wrong side outward. Like I'm going to twist him in knots. I'm going to drive him insane. Just such a good story. Like I said, every time I see it, it's something else I learn, you know? Anyway, it was a great stream, fellas. I appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate everybody coming through. And I thank you for the comments and chatting it up. That's so much fun. I love it. And I appreciate everybody being here. Q, Robert, I think it's Robert Reyes. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Robert Reyes. Bobby Digital, everybody in here. Appreciate you guys showing up. Alex, of course. Tablet. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. As usual, per the usual. I think it's usually 9:30. That's pretty safe bet. Anyways, fellas, I will see you guys